Izuku Midoriya had wanted to be a hero more than anything else in the world, taking inspiration from every pro hero he saw. But one pro hero had more of his attention than any other: All Might, the #1 hero. The man who fought without fear and announced to the world, "I am here." That's why, when young Izuku woke up only to find out he was stuck to his bed sheets after standing, he was ecstatic. Then he slipped. "MOM, I did it," Izuku screams as he peels himself off the floor. Inko Midoriya rushes into the room, immediately assessing the situation. "What's wrong, baby? Are you hurt?" she asks as she tries to pry him from the floor and fails completely. "Give mommy a minute. I'll use my quirk to pull the sheet off." She uses her power to attract small objects to pull his blanket towards her. A bead of sweat rolls down her face as she attracts the blanket. Slowly but surely, Inko manages to pull the blanket off the floor. Izuku is still stuck to the bottom of the blanket, and he's laughing. "I have a quirk. I have a cool quirk. Honey, try turning off your stickiness. Then we'll go to the doctor and get this figured out," Inko says while whipping the sweat off her face. Izuku concentrates for the next 10 minutes and falls on his feet. DR's office. "This is so cool. I get to be a hero like All Might," Izuku says while rocking back and forth in his seat. The door opens and a bald man with round glasses and a lab coat walks in. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asks with a calming voice. "My son activated his quirk and is having trouble with it," Inko responds while pointing at Izuku's hand, which is still holding the door to her red car. "Remarkable, highly advanced adhesive abilities and super strength. Let's see if an X-ray and blood sample will reveal anything else." As the doctor grabs the syringe and brings it closer to Izuku's arm, he begins feeling a weird buzzing in his head and yanks his arm back. "Leave me alone," Izuku says with a voice that isn't human as a green substance crawls over Izuku's face, forming a mask with a white mouth and black sharp teeth. "What is that?" Inko screams. "Looks like a physical manifestation is part of your son's quirk. He has a living entity living as a part of him. Don't be alarmed. I met a young man with a bird head who had a similar issue, except his was more hostile," the doctor says as he holds out his hand and fires a waves of blue mist at Izuku, knocking him out. "My quirk allows me to put people to sleep. Your son is fine. Now, time for that X-ray." 1 hour later. The doctor came back and explained what he had seen. "Apparently, there is a green sludge thing in the arm we were about to draw blood from, and it is constantly moving underneath the skin. It changed positions twice over the course of an hour. Once it moved out of the arm, he was able to see an unnatural object in his wrist that looks like a spinneret and a slit in the palm of his hands." "Let me try something," Izuku interrupts as he focuses on his right hand and flicks his wrist. Thwip, a thin string of something shoots out of his wrists, hitting a paper on the wall. He yanks his arm back. The paper flies across the room and lands in his hand. The doctor pokes the web with a finger and immediately pulls back with a jolt. "It shocked me. You have electric webs. This is amazing, spectacular. If these webs get stronger, you might be able to use these to knock out villains and restrain them," the doctor says while jotting down notes. On the way home, Izuku has been uncomfortable for the past 10 minutes. Every time a car horn goes off, the sound makes his insides start to feel like they're being punched. The next day, Katsuki is a young boy with ash blonde, spiky hair, and sharp red eyes. His quirk allows him to cause explosions by igniting his nitroglycerin-like sweat. Due to this, his body has become much tougher so that his body doesn't take damage from its own explosions. He is also Izuku Midoriya's only friend, so naturally he was the first person to be told about Izuku's mutant quirk. "That's fucking cool, but mine is fucking awesome," Katsuki announces as he prepares to cause his hands to unleash an explosion. That buzzing sensation returns and Izuku is suddenly airborne. Moments later, Katsuki sneezes and accidentally fires an explosion at Izuku's previous position. "I love this agility and my stickum powers," Izuku says while hanging upside down on one of the park tree's branches. He pulls on his hand to get it off the tree branch, but he ends up pulling the branch off instead. Izuku starts falling and he tries shooting a web at the other branch, but the web snaps immediately. Izuku falls face first into the ground and breaks his nose. When he pulls his face off the ground, he realizes that the green thing from yesterday is moving behind his nose, and suddenly his nose stops bleeding. Izuku runs back home to show his mom his broken nose. Izuku notices that he is moving much faster than a boy his age should be able to, but doesn't realize that his nose has already repaired itself until he gets home. The start of elementary school. Izuku is 6 years old at this point. His green eyes have gotten darker, and his messy hair has gotten much messier. Okay, class, come to the front and introduce yourselves. The white-haired teacher with yellow eyes and a dark skin tone announces. Izuku quickly pulls out his quirk analysis book to write down what he hears. When it's Izuku's turn, he gets up and tells the class his name, but chooses not to tell them everything his quirk can do. My quirk is called Wall Crawler. It allows me to stick to anything with any part of my body. I'm also capable of shooting electrically charged spider webs that are super sticky from my wrist spinnerets. Izuku says while pointing at the bulges in his wrists, shocking his teacher with his big words and simultaneously confusing his classmates. Lame. You're just a freaky spider. One of the kids with yells from the back. Says the guy who's wearing a metal face mask because he has a mouth full of acid spit. At least I can kiss a girl without melting her face off. Izuku fires back immediately. What girl would kiss a spider boy? Your breath probably smells like insects. One of the girls in the middle of the room shouts. This girl has a quirk that allows her to shoot water from her hands. Okay, this ends now. Midoriya, you can sit down now. The teacher interrupts. Izuku walks to his seat, making sure to walk past both of the people who dissed him. As he passes by the girl, he taps her shoulder, giving her a tiny shock, and she lets out a sound of surprise. Shut up before we rip out your tongue and shove it up your. Izuku says before abruptly shutting his mouth with a blush on his cheeks. He quickly shuffles past the boy with the face mask and a green web rips it off. This causes all of the spit inside to fall on the desk, and it quickly melts through it and the floor. Luckily for the boy, they are on the first floor and the school has no basement. The teacher sends the boy to the principal's office and Izuku sits down while pondering what just happened. I still have no idea how to stop my symbiote, from taking over my voice and acting on its own as that green creature. It's halfway through the school year and Izuku still hasn't made any new friends. They all avoid him because he's super smart and he doesn't let them copy his work. Plus, his powers keep acting up and he ends up causing property damage every other day. Whether he was sticking to his desk and pulling it apart accidentally, he was accidentally firing electric webs when he moved his wrists and pulled parts of the wall out, making the wires in the wall get short-circuited. Then there's the time that he accidentally caused a school-wide power outage by touching the fuse box. Luckily for his mother, the school never fined them for damages. Every day just seemed to blur by, and neither Izuku nor Katsuki could tell you why. Izuku was the smartest student in class, but Katsuki was definitely the most popular because of his flashy quirk. This meant that they would inevitably drift apart due to Katsuki's new fame. The supersized ego from all the praise didn't help either. Katsuki was hailed as the next All Might by student and teacher alike. The final straw was when Katsuki uttered the name Deku after Izuku refused to fight back and lost. Despite all this, Izuku didn't care. All that mattered was getting stronger, strong enough to surpass All Might. He spends most of his days training in secret, drawing designs for his future costume and writing about quirks in his notebook. But not even Izuku's spider sense could warn him about what was to happen next. A loud voice shakes the building and sends Izuku to the floor while holding his ears. Present Mike, the man who uses my hard counter. Izuku thinks to himself as he picks himself up. Can kill him? Salvation asks. No. Present Mike yells louder. I'll think about it. Yay, Salvation responds before screaming after another sound burst. The entire school, 350 people, rushes outside to see who's talking. Good morning, students. This is Present Mike coming to you live with an important announcement. Today, I'll be helping you with your basic quirk training. My bosses decided that interacting with kids at a younger age would decrease the number of accidental deaths and future villains. Other heroes have been dispatched to other schools for the same reason, but you guys are lucky enough to get the one and only voice hero, Present Mike. Can I get a yeah? Yeah. The entire school screams, nearly sending Izuku back to the floor. You win this round, Present Mike. Izuku whimpers while pushing his hands against his ears harder, hoping to turn down the volume. The end of the day. Training was really intense for Izuku. Once Present Mike figured out that he had more stamina than his entire school, Izuku was tasked with doing more than anyone else. While other kids had to run a mile, Izuku would run 4. When the other kids were tasked with doing 20 push-ups, Izuku did 50 with Present Mike sitting on his back. Then it came time for quirk training, and this is where Izuku struggled the most. He was tasked with dragging Present Mike around the school by using his webbing without shocking him. This had 2 purposes, strengthening his webbing and teaching him how to control his electrical output. Did I forget to mention that whenever Izuki's web snapped or he started to complain, Present Mike would yell cheesy motivational quotes like "no pain, no gain," and "plus ultra." By the 6th quote, Salvation was ready to gag him with webbing. By the 40th quote, Izuku was happy to follow through with Salvation's idea. This led to Izuku learning how to shoot balls of webbing at Present Mike. Unfortunately, the voice hero dodged every web shot. Izuku wouldn't wonder where they landed until he got home. "This pest annoying," Salvation says as Izuku finishes his 12th lap. "Faster," Present Mike screams, causing Izuku to cringe. "I'd be faster if I wasn't carrying a 200-pound man who makes me weaker every time he opens his mouth." Izuku snaps, accidentally going back to taser mode. "Yuchh," Present Mike screams, and Izuku falls unconscious. Oops, Present Mike thinks to himself as he tries to pull the webs off his chest only to find that he can't and his hand is stuck to it. That's a problem. Present Mike tries to detach the web by running away until it gets pulled off, but he gets yanked back after a certain distance. He picks up a stick and tries to break the web, but the stick gets stuck. He uses sticks to start a fire and burn the webs, but it has no effect. If only he knew that Izuki's father passed down flame resistance to his son. He keeps trying stuff like this for an hour, until Izawa comes by. "Quit playing around," he says before yawning in his hand. "This web isn't coming off," Present Mike screams, still running around. "Fine," Izawa says before his black eyes turn red. He activated Erasure. The webs fall off of Present Mike's chest, and his hand is freed. Present Mike picks up Izuku and carries him to the principal's office in order to find his address. Once the address is found, Present Mike and Izawa take him home, sneaks through the window, and sits him on his bed. They vacate the premises, and Izawa lets out a yawn. "This is all your fault, Hisashi. I could be sleeping at home right now, but you just had to volunteer me for basic quirk training. You know you had fun teaching the kiddies. Fine, but you're never talking me into teaching again." It's just about time for Izuku's story to truly begin. The story of how Izuku became a hero. So, as third-year students, it's time to start thinking seriously about your futures and what you want to do with the rest of your lives. I could pass out these career aptitude tests, but why bother? We all know you want to be heroes, despite the fact that some of your quirks are friggin' useless. The teacher mumbles the last part. Like seriously, the guy whose only power is pulling his eyes out of his head believes he can be a hero. Don't mention me in the same breath as those worthless rejects. With their useless quirks, they'd be lucky to become a hero's secretary. You get 3 guesses to decide who said that, but the first 2 don't count. You and your pride are starting to piss me off, Kakin. You think just because you're powerful you have the right to bully, antagonize, and disrespect the people you deem inferior to you. Well, I'm going to prove you wrong. You've built up and hid behind this illusion that none of your peers can be better than you. Well, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to destroy your pride by becoming the #1 hero and let you feel the way you've made everyone else. I'm going to grab that illusion you've made and shatter it. Izuku shouts while his fingers dig grooves into his desk. Izuku's little speech silences the classroom, and his peers wait with bated breath. Katsuki is known to blow a fuse from somebody sassing him. They were afraid to see what an insult would spark. And like they'd feared, Katsuki had become enraged. How dare that useless Deka talk back to me? I'll show him his place, he thinks before screaming die, as he charges towards Izuku, knocking over everyone in his path. Game over, Izuku thinks to himself as he fires a web at Katsuki's right palm and sparks his electricity across the web, paralyzing that arm. This prematurely sets off the explosion and creates a smokescreen for Izuku to play in. Izuku charges into the smoke and pulls back his right fist in preparation for his finisher. He slams his fist into Katsuki's stomach. The only thing the class sees is Katsuki rocketing out of the smoke and into the wall. They feel a gust of wind that blows the smoke away, revealing Izuku, fist outstretched and a smirk fully on his lips. "Your illusion is cracking," Izuku announces before the bell rings. Izuku cracks open the window and jumps out, landing on the ground before rocketing himself to the rooftop across the street. He would take the rooftops home today. His mom is getting home from work late today, so Izuku is going to make dinner himself and make his mom a separate meal when she gets home. Error, error. A woman turns from a smoking computer in shock. Another one. She whines at the smoking computer behind her. The title, Deca, doesn't get captured, shocks her even further. How is Izuku supposed to learn from All Might if he doesn't meet him before UA? She spends the next hour trying to figure out how to fix this. "I got it," she declares as she rapidly types into the keyboard. Back to the Spider Deca universe. Izuku is channel surfing while eating his ramen when he lands on the news channel. "We're coming to you live from downtown as a sludge monster is holding a junior high student captive within himself. The boy seems to have an explosion-based quirk that's running wild and starting fires. Kamui Woods, Death Arms, and MT Lady are on the scene to apprehend the villain, but he's impervious to all of their physical attacks, and Kamui Woods risks being set on fire if Backdraft can't extinguish the flames, while MT Lady is too big to enter the arena," the reporter says as her cameraman zooms in to give the viewers a clear view. Izuku was about to start writing down notes about their abilities and tactics when he sees that the captive is Katsuki Bakugo. "Damn it, I can't shatter your illusion if you die too early," Izuku says as he bursts out the door, locking it behind him. He jumps onto a roof and jumps from rooftop to rooftop until he reaches the action. Izuku leaps over Death Arm's attempt at crowd control and lands in front of the sludge villain. "You seriously don't want that guy inside of you. You might get indigestion or a disease." Izuku announces his presence and draws everyone's attention to him. "Kid, you need to get back," Kamui Wood informs him after landing next to him. "Sorry, but that's not going to happen. I'm here to save an asshole," Izuku replies before shooting a web line at Katsuki's exposed torso and pulling on it. This begins a game of tug-of-war that the sludge villain loses badly. When Katsuki is out, Izuku starts shooting balls of webbing at the sludge villain. "It's no use. Physical attacks can't touch me," the sludge villain says, and Izuku immediately responds. "Those webs will shock you," Izuku says before electricity starts to dance across the sludge and heat it up. This hardens the sludge just enough for Izuku to trap him in ordinary webbing. Once this is done, the reporters immediately shove their microphones in front of his face. Izuku answers their questions truthfully until they start asking for his name and other info that he wouldn't like to share with the city. He finds an opening to escape when Death Arms starts guiding civilians away. Izuku is walking down a side street with his eyes closed when he hears a voice. "I am here." Izuku opens his eyes and jumps back in shock. All Might was in front of him. All Might was talking to him. Izuku immediately goes into one of his infamous mumble rants. "Be quiet. I came to ask you about what happened back there. Why did you jump in to save your friend when pros were doing the job already?" All Might interrupts. "He isn't my friend. I hate just about everything he believes in. Sigh, but I couldn't just let him die like that. Nobody deserves to be murdered," Izuku says while flashing back to one of his old classmates. He had a quirk that allowed his right hand to negate any quirk it came in contact with, even mutation quirks. Unfortunately, it did nothing to stop ordinary explosions. All Might is left staring in awe at Izuku. "He's the one. I'm sure of it," he thinks to himself before making his offer. "Inherit my quirk and become the next person to carry the torch." "What do you mean inherit your quirk? Quirks can't just be given away. If they could, it would change everything we know about how quirks work," Izuku replies. "That's true for every quirk except two. My quirk has that power. Most people like to assume that my quirk is some type of super strength or invulnerability, but that isn't true. My quirk stockpiles power from one user and passes that power on to the next. That user refines the power and adds to it until they choose a successor. I'm the 8th user, and should you accept my offer, you'll be the 9th inch," All Might whispers into Izuku's ear. "Sure, I'll accept your power. But you have to explain why you only work 3 hours a day. Izuku agrees. How do you know how long I work? All Might asks with a small hint of fear in his voice. The internet. The fans of Pro Heroes have a website that tracks everyone's work hours and shows how they changed over time since their debut. Why do you think villains with fire quirks mainly commit crimes while Kimui Woods is active and ice quirks vanish at noon when Endeavor starts patrolling? Izuku explains. Fine, I'll tell you why, but you have to keep it a secret. All Might agrees before telling the story of his battle against All for One and explaining who he is. This Saturday, meet me at Dagoba Beach, he says before jumping away. Saturday. Why are we here? Izuku asks as he shoots webbing at his nose to block out the stench. All Might immediately responds. We're here to strengthen your body so that transferring one for all into your body won't kill you instantly. I'm already strong, just look at this. Izuku replies before walking over to a refrigerator and lifting it with one hand, causing All Might to choke on his spit. Incredible, he says before asking how he's so strong, but so small. My quirk gives me the traits of a spider, which includes the ridiculous strength that spiders have, the speed, agility, spinnerets, and some abilities the doctor couldn't quite explain. Oh yeah, I also have a living organism inside of me. Izuku says as he shows him each ability. What does the organism do? All Might asks with that giant smile on his face. As it is now, it can make and shoot its own webbing, make pants out of itself, and play around with my body's anatomy. Izuku explains as his cheeks turn pink. How strong are the webs you make? All Might questions. They can hold 10 times my body weight. Izuku responds after doing some math. What about me? Salvation asks. He didn't ask about you. Meaning, he doesn't know any better, Izuku whispers while rubbing the symbiote. Did he forget I'm still here? All Might thinks to himself as he pulls out a hair and shoves it into Izuku's face while screaming, Eat this. No. Why? When was the last time you washed your hair? Yesterday morning. Did you put something in your hair afterwards? Yes. I'm not putting that in my mouth. You need to consume my DNA in order to gain one for all. Salvation, take care of this. Fine, but you owe me. A green tendril shoots out of Izuku's mouth and snatches the hair. The tendrils wraps around the hair and retreats back into Izuku's body. What was that? My symbiote. What did it do? It's currently analyzing the hair and removing the hair products. Once that's done, it'll deposit the hair into my stomach for digestion. That's cool. Give me a second. Izuku says before that tendrils returns and deposits a glob of hair grease onto the ground. You use too much grease. Izuku informs him. Clean the beach while you wait for one for all. All Might tells Izuku, while writing down use less hair grease. It took an hour to clean that beach. Izuku would attach web strings to as many pieces as garbage as possible, pull them close together, and web them up. Once that was done, he would pick up the garbage ball and toss it into the garbage truck. Done. Salvation says moments before green electricity arcs across Izuku's body. Good. Now clench your cheeks, plant your feet, and scream, smash. SNH, Izuku screams as he punches the air, creating a gust of wind and splitting the ocean. All Might watches from the sidelines with a look of pride on his face. Izuku has a smile on his face, which quickly vanishes once the pain kicks in. You should have warned me that my arm would break. Izuku screams, but All Might isn't sure whether it's from pain or anger. I kind of forgot that fact. It's been decades since I acquired and mastered one for all. Plus, I never had to deal with the recoil for some reason. All Might reveals while rubbing the back of his head. My teacher is an idiot, Izuku thinks as his arm hangs limp at his side. Give me 5 to 10 minutes. Salvation states as he slinks from Izuku's head to his broken right arm. In 10 months, the U.A entrance exams begin. Every Saturday until then, I'll train you and teach you how to hold back. All Might states before running after the 3 police cars that just flew by. 10 months later. You ready for this? Salvation asks, his excitement easy to see. As long as I don't have to meet Present Mike again, I'll be fine. Izuku responds, eager to get in there and kick ass. Izuku looks to his right and sees a girl with brown hair trip. Izuku vanishes in a blur and reappears behind her. Then he sticks his right hand to her back. And she immediately stops. I think you dropped something, Izuku jokes as he picks her up with one hand. Thanks for the save. Falling before a big event is a very bad omen, she says before telling him that her name is Achiko Uraraka. She turns around, revealing that her eyes are also brown, and tells him good luck. Izuku Midoriya, good luck on the practical exam, Izuku tells her before they walk into the buildings. They walk into a giant classroom to take the written exams and come back out an hour later. How do you think you did on the written portion? Achiko questions Izuku as soon as they leave the room. I aced it. I've been studying hero tactics and quirks since I learned what a hero was, Izuku says before grimacing at how that made him sound like a super nerd. Cool, I struggled a little bit. Question 39 asked how I'd use my quirk to save a hostage being held at gunpoint, but my quirk isn't suited for that scenario. Zero gravity allows me to make objects ignore the effects of gravity after I touch them. That isn't very helpful for this type of scenario, so I had to get super creative with rocks and discarded clothing articles, Achiko said before they reached their destination. Izuku opens the door and sees someone he hoped to never see again. Present Mike. Izuku growls as he and Achiko go to their assigned seats. Izuku's day gets even worse when he realizes that they're grouped by schools, meaning that Izuku Midoriya was sitting right next to Katsuki Bakugo. Welcome, young heroes. It's the one and only Present Mike coming to you live from the UA entrance exams. Can I get a hell yeah? Silence. By this point, Izuku is forced to put his head down on the desk. Today, the name of the game is Urban Combat. All applicants will be transported to one of 4 facilities designed to recreate an urban area. You're separate from your classmates too, so no teaming up with friends. Once there, you'll be tasked with racking up points by beating robots. These robots come in 3 varieties: 1-pointers, 2-pointers, and 3-pointers. Present Mike screams before getting interrupted by a question. Sir, the pamphlet clearly shows that there are 5 robots. If this is a typo, it is a very big stain on UA's reputation. And you? He turns around to point out Izuku with his head down. If you're going to sleep through the instructions, you might as well go home. This school isn't a place for slackers. This makes Izuku's bad mood worse, and he almost snaps. Mind your own business. It's not my fault that my quirk gives me a weakness to extremely loud noises. If the world didn't insist on giving us the loudest hero, I'd have been perfectly fine today. Hey, you're that little dude from way back, Present Mike shouts after remembering his face. But anyways, the other 2 robots are nearly identical, except for 2 things. One is a 0-pointer obstacle, and the other is a whopping 100 points. You can't tell the difference, so you might as well run from both. And also, the 100-pointer is made from a metal that has minor shock absorption as a built-in function. The applicants are transported to their facilities, and Izuku can't help but wonder how UA's budget is big enough to allow 4 giant cities. He sees a nervous Achiko a little further ahead, and he goes to talk to her, but a hand grips onto his shoulder. It's that same guy with glasses who called him out earlier. Are you trying to sabotage that girl? She's clearly trying to concentrate, he almost yells. Don't touch me. Did it ever cross your mind that I know her, or that I'm trying to comfort a girl that is clearly nervous? Izuku growls out before smacking the guy's hand off of his shoulder and walks toward Achiko, leaving the red-faced man behind. Calm down, you'll do fine, Izuku says softly, and Achiko becomes slightly less tense. Thanks, Izuku, she replies before the gates swing open and Present Mike screams go. Izuku picks up Achiko and leaps over the other people, gaining a very large head start between them and the crowd. Thanks again, best buddy, Achiko says before they go their separate ways to get points. Izuku comes across a 3-pointer and shoots a web string at it, before sending a taser's worth of electricity at it, blowing it up. Next, a group of 1-pointers appear at Izuku, smashes the one with a sword arm, and tosses the sword arm into the red eye of another 1-pointer. Sorry to cut in, but I really need to pass, he says before he flips over that one and tosses it into the last 2, destroying them with the explosion. Izuku runs up a nearby building and backflips off of it. He shoots a web string at another building and starts swinging around the city. 5 minutes pass with Izuku effortlessly smashing dozens of robots into each other. Then something goes wrong. Izuku's spider sense starts going crazy and 4 giant robot arms smash through a building in front of everyone. "Run away," somebody in the crowd screams. Izuku perches himself on top of a building nearby, and he notices that Achiko's leg is stuck under the rubble in a way that clearly shows she was running away beforehand. To make matters even worse, one of those robots' feet is almost on top of her. What am I going to do now? There's only one way I could stop that robot in time. He thinks, jumping off of his perch and diving at the 50 feet tall robot. No time to regulate the power, so I have to give it 100%. Izuku states before green electricity dances across his right arm. "Leave her alone," he screams as he punches the robot's head and sends the entire thing flying. It destroys 3 of the buildings behind it, before crushing its head against the wall on the other side of the false city. Meanwhile, Izuku is falling to the ground, face first, an arm flapping in the wind. As he gets closer to the ground, green webs shoot out of his legs and attaches to the buildings nearby. At the same time, Achiko slaps Izuku's face to activate zero gravity. Seeing that Izuku is fine, Salvation releases the webbing and Achiko pulls Izuku into her lap. She cancels zero gravity and vomits behind the rubble. "Time's up," Present Mike yells as all the robots shut down. An elderly lady starts walking through the city, giving out gummy bears that decrease fatigue, and starts treating the injured by kissing their wounds. When she reaches our duo, she's shocked at the sight of Izuku's arm. It's healing before her very eyes. Sure, it's slow, but it isn't hard to notice cuts being stitched shut by a green tendril, and then the tendrils vanish, leaving behind flawless skin. "Let me fix up your ankle, then I'll work on his arm," she tells Achiko. "Did you remember to floss?" Inko Midoriya questions as her son rushes out of his room and shoots a web string at his backpack. "Yes, I remembered to floss today. Bye, Mom. Love you," Izuku responds as he leaves his home on the way to Yue. "I still can't believe that I smashed the 100-pointer and scored 79 points from normal robots." Katsuki must be so pissed off to know that Deku not only beat him, but also destroyed the old record by 50 points. Izuku thinks as he jumps to school. It's a good thing that Izuku's naturally enhanced agility and strength aren't outlawed by the quirk laws. Permanent enhancements aren't banned from use. You're just fined more if you fuck up. Izuku arrives at Yue with 3 minutes to spare. And once he's inside the courtyard, he looks at the map on the wall to see where Class 1A is. He web swings to the other side of the building, since Hero School students are allowed to use their quirks on school grounds unless they get that privilege gets revoked by staff members. Izuku lands next to the window and begins to tap on the window lightly. A girl with purple hair looks up at the window and starts walking towards it. She unlocks the window, and Izuku climbs in while thanking the girl. "My name is Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you." Izuku introduces himself while sticking out his hand for a handshake. "My name is Kyokujiro. Nice entrance." She replies while shaking his hand, but when she tries to let go, she finds out her hand is stuck. "Oops, I forgot to turn off my stickiness," Izuku says while blushing in embarrassment. "Is that your quirk, sticking to stuff?" Kyoka says while chuckling. "No, I have the powers of a spider and a symbiote," Izuku answers. "What's a symbiote?" Kyoka questions. A symbiote is an organism that uses a host to survive. Sometimes it's mutually beneficial, and sometimes it's parasitic, and the symbiote is a major problem for the host. Fortunately, mine is mostly the former, Izuku explains, accidentally slipping into mumble talk. Thanks to her good hearing, Kyoka heard every word. Fumikage also heard this and starts speaking. So, somebody else can understand the struggle of living with another entity inside of them. Dark Shadow also causes me problems. His will and my own clash more often than not. Only my willpower keeps him from rampaging. Fumikage exposits. Have you ever tried to sit down with Dark Shadow and talk this shit out? Izuku queries. In absolute darkness, he can't be controlled and he can't be reasoned with. Bargaining with it isn't an option. Then don't bargain with the rampaging beast. Teach the docile version how to control itself. If it learns to stay docile while powerful, you'll become an unstoppable god of the night. Izuku replies, his knowledge of quirks coming in handy for once. It identifies as a he, Thank you very much, Dark Shadow replies after being manifested. Sorry, I didn't know darkness could have a gender, Izuku apologizes, before allowing Salvation to manifest half of a mask on the left half of his face. Slayer 76. It's the same one from before. So, what's your partner like? Salvation shoots a question at Dark Shadow. He's a total stick in the mud, doesn't even try to get a girlfriend. Dark Shadow responds, sending Kyoka into a quiet giggle fit. Same here, Salvation replies. Girls look at my powers, and all they see is a giant spider in human skin. Girls look at me and see a talking bird. Nothing I do is going to help me find a girlfriend. By this point, Kyoka couldn't contain her laughter anymore. I'll kill yours if you kill mine, Izuku declares. Deal, but only if we kill the sun first, Fumikage replies. Why the sun? It annoys me. Fine, but the moon goes next. Why the moon? It mocks me by being out of my reach forever. Deal. You hear that, Salvation, your days are numbered. This discussion gets disrupted by the classroom door opening to reveal a giant caterpillar? Giant caterpillar, one of the female students yelled. I'm your teacher, Shota Aizawa, the caterpillar says. Talking caterpillar, the same female yells. A second glance later, and they realized that it was a sleeping bag, and the face staring at them looked completely unamused. Caterpillars don't talk. You people aren't very rational, Shota says as he stands up and unzips the bag. Put on your gym clothes and meet me outside. We're taking let's call it a pre-test. But what about the opening ceremonies? Achiko asks. We don't have time to waste on frivolous things like opening ceremonies. As students in the hero course, you only have 3 years to learn how to save lives. We're going to push you to your limits and then make you shatter those limits. This is plus ultra, Aizawa states. 8 minutes later. It took 8 minutes for you guys to get out here. We'll get that down to 4 before the week ends. Anyways, we're going to do a little test. As kids, you all had to do standard exercises such as the ball throw and 50-meter dash. But the government made you do it without your quirks to keep up the illusion that all men are created equal by not letting people with power excel. Maybe one day the Ministry of Education will learn Midoriya. How far could you throw in elementary school? Aizawa asks. Izuku takes a few seconds to remember, then answers. 171 meters. They made me hold back because my strength was always active. Good. Now take this ball. Stand in the circle and throw it. Don't hold back this time. Aizawa instructs as he tosses the ball at Izuku. And this time, do it without shattering your arm. That was a one-time thing. I didn't have time to regulate the power flow because it was about to kill Achiko. Izuku claims as one for all's green energy, and his blue electricity dances across his arm. This is how Izuku plans to hide one for all, making it appear that the green energy is actually a unique type of electricity. This will theoretically make people less suspicious when Izuku stops using the blue electricity altogether. Izuku launches the ball into the sky, creating a shockwave that kicks up a cloud of dust. The other students are nearly knocked off their feet, and Katsuki is pissed off. Bastard thinks he can be better than me. I'll just triple his score. The smoke clears and Aizawa is seen holding up the device that clearly displays 100,900 meters. What? A vertically challenged boy screams. How are we supposed to beat that? If you think that is bad, just wait until you see my grip strength. Izuku smirks at the boy before his spider sense goes off. We get to use our quirks as much as we want. This'll be fun, the girl with pink skin says cheerfully. Fun, you say? The hero course isn't about fun, so let's make this less fun and games. New rule. The student who comes in last place during these 8 tests will be judged as a hopeless case with 0 potential and expelled from the hero course immediately. Aizawa announces. That isn't fair, Achiko says, while silently hoping that she doesn't fail. Natural disasters, power-hungry villains, catastrophic events that wipe out entire cities, and people who won't let me nap aren't either. As heroes, it's our job to combat that unfairness. Aizawa retorts. The first test was the 50-meter dash. Ida was standing at the starting too. Both of their quirks are perfect for this. Ida's quirk is speed-based, while Tsuyu's frog quirk lets her leap large distances in a single bound. Ida, 3.04 seconds. Su, 5.58 seconds. Watching that girl made me really uncomfortable, Izuku whispers to Kyoka. This causes Kyoka to snicker. Kyoka goes next and gets 6.09 seconds. Izuku stops paying attention until it's his and Katsuki's turn. He puts both hands on the starting line and waits for the signal to go. Once that signal appears, Izuku sprints off, leaving a footprint in the starting line, while Katsuki uses explosions to create an afterburner. Izuku, 1.04 seconds. Katsuki, 4.13 seconds. Katsuki looks like he's about to explode. That shitty Deku keeps getting in my way. I'll just show him that he'll always be under me, just a pebble to be stepped on. The grip strength test is next, and only two people really stood out. Shoji Mizo and his quirk. Dupli Arms gaining a score of 540.0 kilograms by using his 6 arms to squeeze the device. Izuku decides to go all out and ends up crushing the device with his left hand. Aizawa just sighs, already regretting that he told Izuku not to hold back. Kyoka uses her earphone jacks to squeeze the device, getting a decent score of 150.5 kilograms. The rest of the tests get dominated by Izuku: sit-ups, distance run, standing long jump, repeated side steps, and even the seated toe touch. You're very flexible, Ochiko says, causing Kyoka to chuckle and Izuku to blush. All right, breaking everything down would take too long, so I'll just post the entire list. Aizawa announces. Izuku Midoriya. Momo. Shoto Todoroki. Ida Tenya. Katsuki Bakugo. Many names later. 20. Minoru Mineta. Mineta collapses to the ground, wailing about how he didn't even get to see a pair of boobies. By the way, nobody is expelled. That whole expulsion thing was a logical ruse to make you bring out the upper limits of your quirks, Aizawa says with the biggest shit-eating grin Izuku had ever seen. The entire class except for Momo, Katsuki, Shoto, and Izuku breathes a sigh of relief. On the way home. If he was lying this entire time, why did my spider sense tell me there was danger? Izuku thinks as he walks towards the gates. Wait up, Ida says as he slides to a stop. Izuku's expression darkens as he remembers what this guy was like during the entrance exam. What do you want? Izuku utters. I wanted to apologize for what I said during the entrance exams. I had no right to assume that you were a slacker or trying to sabotage Ochiko, Ida said while bending at a 90 degrees angle. I accept your apology. Izuku walks away before being called to once again. How are you getting home? Kyoka asks after catching up to him, Ochiko a couple seconds behind her. Web swinging. Now that we're officially enrolled in a hero school, we are considered heroes in training. This means that as long as we have our school ID on us, we're allowed to publicly use our quirks as long as we don't fight villains or hurt people. When we get our licensees, we'll be able to fight villains whenever we find them. Izuku answers. That's cool. I have to catch a train to get home, Kyoka replies, prompting Ochiko to say the same thing. Rush hour starts soon. That train will be packed. Izuku speaks before making a decision. Both of you hop on. I'll swing you home in half the time. How would you carry the two of us? We're about the same height, and you're barely taller than us. Kyoka questions. This causes Izuku to blush, since he's about to reveal a secret not even his mom knows about. I can stick you to any part of my body and support your body weight thanks to my quirk. I call hanging from his back. Ochiko leaps onto Izuku's back and immediately sticks. A free ride isn't something she's willing to pass up, and she trusts Izuku to keep her safe. Where will I stick? Kyoka ponders before a smirk appears on her face. She grabs Izuku's arm and puts it behind her thighs before pushing herself up against his chest. Izuku immediately turns into a blushing and stuttering mess. Lucky, Salvation whispers, which is mirrored by Mineta. Unknown to Izuku, this response sealed his fate. Shut up, pervert. Izuku yells as he shoots a web shot at Mineta's mouth before jumping into the air and attaching his web to a building. He swings forward and releases the web. He lets them fall for a couple seconds before swinging with another web to pick up speed. Warn me next time. Kyoka shrieks as Izuku flips in midair. What's wrong? Can't handle a little freefall? Izuku asks with a huge smile on his lips. Achiko screams before telling Izuku to make a left, then a right. 10 minutes later, Achiko is above her apartment building and tells Izuku to let her fall. Are you crazy? We're 50 feet in the air. Izuku yelled before Achiko reveals that she can make herself float before impacting the ground. Fine, but you better land without hurting yourself. Izuku relents as Achiko jumps off of his back. My house isn't too far from here, Kyoka informs Izuku as he shoots another web. Izuku gets a devious smile on his face as he lets go of his web and pretends to faint. Izuku, what's wrong? Wake up. Kyoka panics as the ground gets closer and closer. With Shoto Aizawa. A logical ruse? That doesn't sound like the guy who expelled an entire class on day 1. All Might says. That class had zero potential as heroes, so I cut them loose. Mineta has potential, a small amount, but potential nonetheless. It'd be cruel to let a kid pursue a dream he has no hope of achieving. Aizawa retorts before yawning and crawling back into his sleeping bag. I blame you for this present, Mike. I can't believe you managed to push me into teaching again. Aizawa thinks as he closes his eyes. I guess I better go review my lesson plans for tomorrow. All Might sighs before walking up to his office. Free-falling pair. Wake up. Kyoka screams before shoving an earphone jack into his head and releasing a small sound wave. This causes Izuku's eyes to snap open, and he shoots a web to pull them over to a roof. Don't ever scare me like that again, Kyoka demands before Izuku drops to his knees and starts vomiting up lunch and pieces of salvation. There's even a piece of him stuck in the earphone jack. Gah, she hit my brain. Salvation screams as he recalls the pieces that were removed. The individual pieces begin to wriggle around before jumping towards each other. The one on Kyoka's ear draws blood before rejoining the rest and forming a blob with splotches of purple. That blob returns to Izuku's body to rejoin the rest of itself. Something doesn't feel right, Salvation uttered as the blob mingled with the rest of Salvation. You're overreacting, Izuku thinks as he finishes vomiting. What was that? Kyoka asks, worrying that she hurt her new friend. My symbiote has a huge weakness to sound attacks. Since it's inside of me at all times, I take damage whenever Salvation begins to violently wriggle around from sound. Izuku explains as he returns to his feet. This is why he never listens to dubstep at max volume. You should have told me that. I wouldn't have used it if I knew it would do damage. Kyoka says while Izuku regains his balance. He picks Kyoka up and swings her home. They land right next to her window, and Izuku pulls it open to slide her in. Izuku looks around to see a lot of dark colors and music-related items. You really like music, don't you? Izuku says as he spots her musical instruments. Yeah, it's a family thing, Kyoka says as she twirls her earphone jacks around her finger. You any good with that guitar? Izuku questions. Yes, I've been practicing since I was a little girl. What about you, any musical talents? Kyoka asks her own question. No, but I can dance. Izuku replies, revealing a secret that only his mom knew. He looks over to his left and sees a book with sheet music sticking out of it. What's that book? Izuku queried. Oh, that's my song book. I've been working on some original music. I could play something. I mean, if you want me to, you probably need to get home. Kyoka offer. You sure, just let me tell my mom I'll be home later than expected. Izuku says as he texts his mom. While Izuku does this, Kyoka decides to play the bass instead of the drums. You so much as roll your eyes or laugh, and I swear I'll murder you, Kyoka declares as she pulls him into her room. Izuku's blush appears full force. I won't, I promise. Kyoka begins to play her guitar. All right, but you better not start calling her mother every time we talk about her or see her. It's weird. Izuku responds. I make no promises. Yui the next day? Izuku walked into class with his eyes firmly planted on the ground. He's limping to his seat and barely manages to mutter a half-hearted hello to the people he passed by. Izuku plops down onto his seat next to Fumikage Tokoyomi and Kyoka Jiro. What happened to you? Kyoko asks immediately. A bird snagged my web line in the middle of my trip to school. I fell 5 stories and smacked into a concrete building. My spider sense never even went off once. And unfortunately, the bird was completely unharmed somehow. Birds are fucking evil. Izuku responds before groaning in pain. Should I be offended? Fumikage ponders. After all, he does have a bird head. Also, we need to talk once class ends, Izuku tells Kyoka, causing an almost unnoticeable blush spread across her cheeks. Suddenly, the door bursts open. I am here. All Might rushes in, coming through the door like a normal person. The class goes wild and starts shouting all at once, most voices getting lost in all the noise. Only two voices are understandable. That's All Might. Mineta yells. That's his Golden Age costume. One of the other students yells. Settle down, settle down. Today we're doing some basic hero training in Battleground Beta. Put on the hero gear you requested and meet me there. I'll explain today's lesson after your suit up. All Might gestures top the wall with boxes labeled 1 to 20, then sprints away. After the suit up? Oh yeah, this is exactly what I needed. Izuku thinks as he examines his skin-tight hero suit. It has a red spider emblem on the chest and back. The red on his shoulders trail down to his stomach, connecting to each other. The eyes on the mask are white with a red outline. Everything else is black. How did you put that on if it's skin-tight? Kirishima questions. The emblem on my chest has 2 buttons. If I push them simultaneously, the suit will loosen up and let me slip in. Press them again, and the suit tightens around the body just enough to be tight, without cutting off blood circulation. Izuku explains before sliding his mask onto his head. This is somehow accomplished despite the giant bush that Izuku calls hair. He squints his eyes and is pleased to see that the mask's eyes mirrored that. Izuku walks into the room with the rest of Class 1A and immediately spots Fumikage. He's kind of hard to miss. Your hero costume is kind of underwhelming. Are you trying to cosplay as Cloak? Fumikage turns around and responds. No, this cloak is meant to keep me in darkness at all times and boost the power of Dark Shadow. It also allows me to hide these. He reaches into the cloak to pull out a flash grenade and a high-power flashlight. So what's with the body stocking? Fumikage asks his own question. If my clothing was too thick, I wouldn't be able to stick to walls very well. This costume also reduces the chances that my body will snag onto something when I'm swinging. Izuku replies. You're naked under that suit? Fumikage asks. I'm wearing underwear. Is the suit fireproof? No, it's insulated against electricity though, and the mask blocks out sound past a certain volume. What happens if Bakugo blows it up? You don't want to see what happens. I'm scared now. Fumikage shudders. You should be. Your nightmares will have nightmares. Izuku says in an eerie tone. Eerie tones are my shtick, get your own. Fumikage says in an eerie tone, do that again and you'll get attacked by another bird tonight. Fine, I'll find something else. And when I do, it'll shock you, Izuku declares, getting the attention of Kaminari. Electricity puns are my thing, fuck off. Fine, they'll leave you frozen in awe, Izuku amends. You can fuck right off, Todoroki states in a cold tone. They'll have you stuck to your seats. Izuku says. Nobody says anything. Well, now that that's over, All Might catches the class's attention. Allow me to tell you what is going on. Today, you'll be learning indoor combat tactics in the best way possible. During the heat of battle, most of the fights you see on TV happen outdoors, but the statistics show that most crimes happen indoors. I'm talking bank robbing, drug dealing, weapon smuggling, and slave trading. To emulate this situation, UA has crafted papier-mâché bombs for us to use. There will be 2 people defending the bomb as villains and 2 people attempting to retrieve the bomb or capture the villains with capture tape. How will teams be decided? How badly can I hurt my opponents? Will there be bathroom break? Are you threatening expulsion like Mr. Aizawa? Hold on, my quirk isn't super hearing. Teams will be decided by drawing lots. One by one, every student grabs a ball with a letter on it. The final teams are Izuku Midoriya and Kyokujiro, all range fighters. Achiko Uraraka and Lita Tenya, ambush specialists. Minoru Mineta and Toru Hagakure, stealth and capture. Katsuki Bakugo and Momo Yaoyorozu, unrelenting force and unpredictability. Denki Kaminari and Ejiro Kirishima, area of effect and tank. Fumikage Tokoyomi and Mizo Shoji, all-range fighters. Shoto Todoroki and Koji Koda, unrelenting force and unpredictability. Yuga Aoyama and Mina Ashido, long-range specialists. Hanta Siro and Rikido Sato, capture specialist and tank. Mashareo Ojiro and Tsuyu Ajui, martial arts and maneuverability. All right, the heroes are. Team D and the villains are. Team A, All Might announces. He explains that the villains get 5 minutes to set up and Team A rushes into the building with their bomb. I guess I get to shatter his illusions sooner than I thought. Izuku thinks. Time to crush him and show Deku that he is below me and always will be. Katsuki thinks. What's the plan? Kyoka asks as they set their bomb in a room on the 5th floor. Katsuki will immediately search for me and Momo looks like the type to not abandon a teammate, so I'll block off 2 of 3 entrances to this floor with rubble and meet them on the 2nd. This way I'll be able to cut loose without worrying about collapsing the floor near our bomb. Izuku says. What do I do? Kyoka asks. Pulse sound throughout the building at irregular intervals to throw off Momo's concentration. That should stop her from creating her bigger weapons that take a lot of time and thought to create. I'm counting on you. I can't take a point-blank cannonball to the chest. Izuku explains. You're weak to sound though. Kyoka states, worried about hurting him again. My mask nullifies sound past a certain volume. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Izuku replies before smirking and sprinting down the halls. Kyoka inserts her earphone jacks into the ground and waits for the match to start. Izuku goes to the closest stairwell and attaches 2 webs to the ceiling. Yanking his arms down, the roof of the building collapses, blocking off that stairwell completely. Next, he goes to the second closest stairwell and blocks that off too. The furthest entrance is the only one left, and that's on the other side of the building. Izuku climbs out of the window in the stairwell and travels to the 2nd floor, which only has 2 sets of stairs that are across from each other. Izuku lays on the ceiling and waits for the heroes to arrive. Start, All Might screams. Bakugo, wait. We still need to plan our attack. Momo yells, chasing down the blonde bullet running through the halls. Find the enemy, beat him senseless. Katsuki replies as he dashes through the hall. The bomb should be our #1 priority. Momo urges. Then you can secure it, Katsuki sneers. This is supposed to be a team exercise. Momo yells. The best doesn't need a team. You'll just slow me down. Katsuki shouts as he runs up the stairwell to the 2nd floor. Target incoming. Kyoka announces through her earpiece, fire when ready. As soon as Katsuki reaches the final step, Izuku rapid fires webs at him, pinning him to the floor. With the class. And Bakugo is down, Ochiko says. Kind of disappointing that they lost so easily, Fu says. This is the fate of everyone that rushes into the battle alone and unprepared. Fumikage declares. Momo is still there. Don't count her out yet, Mizo reminds everyone. Back to the fight. Momo rushes up the stairs with a metal shield on her left arm and right arm. She blocks the barrage of web shots and tosses the shield at Izuku. Izuku dodges and bounces at Momo, preparing to smash. Smash! He shouts as he closes in, right fist about to swing, but his spider sense goes off at the last second and a metal pole shoots out of Momo's arm. Thud. Izuku gets smacked out of the air and starts sliding backwards on his back. Ugh, I can't believe I got hit by something so simple. Izuku groans as he flips upright to see Momo's shirt opened wider and chest glowing blue. Kyoka assists. He shouts into the earpiece. A grating sound reverberates throughout the building, disorienting Momo, and the glowing stops. Izuku sprints at Momo before she can regain her focus and slides between her legs while attaching a web string to her face. He yanks on it, sending Momo to the floor and giving him and a camera a clear view up her skirt. Not today. Izuku shoots a web to block the camera from seeing anything else and shocks it until it shorts out to get rid of the stored image. Momo creates another shield and tosses it at Izuku, hoping to catch him off guard. He slams it into Momo's back before covering her with his webbing and sticking her to the floor. Yada, I won, Izuku said before the building got rocked by an explosion. Dad, dodge. DKU, take me seriously. Izuku turns around to see a giant wave of fire barreling towards him and Momo. Recap. DKU, take me seriously. Izuku turns around to see a giant wave of fire barreling towards him and Momo. Story start. God damn it, Bakugo! Friendly fire, Izuku yells. Green electricity arcs throughout Izuku's arms. I like these hands, Izuku thinks as he slams his hands together. The shockwave halts the fire in its tracks. Return to cinder, Izuku shouts as he punches the air to completely redirect the flames. The reason Izuku didn't lead with that is because it would have created a path through the flames, but the flames would travel on the walls to reach the webs behind him. And we all know why that's a bad thing. Not good enough. Katsuki screams as he charges at Deku. How long until I can use my hands again? Izuku asks Salvation. Too long. Hostile inbound, Salvation says as Izuku looks up. Not a problem. Izuku thinks as he spin kicks Katsuki's chin. I can beat him without my hands. Katsuki responds with a strong uppercut and explosion combo that lifts Izuku off the ground. Izuku backflips away. Why are you backflipping? To gain some distance. You can run. Izuku stops moving and shoots a web at the wall. He yanks that chunk of the wall off and starts swinging the rock around. After the third spin, Izuku launches it at Katsuki. Predictably, Katsuki blows it up, creating a smoke screen. Stop toying with me, he shouts into the smoke. You say that a lot, Izuku says as he rockets through the smoke, feet first. His right foot hits Katsuki's chest first and is closely followed by the left. Then the right foot again, then left, right next. Each kick sends them further and further from their original starting place. The final kick is delivered and moments later, Bakugo finds his bearings. Katsuki uses an explosion to fly over Deku and punch him in the back, before sweeping Deku's leg from under him. I'll stop saying it when it stops being the truth. You can bench press my dad's car, but I barely felt those kicks. Katsuki yells as he grabs Deku's leg and slams him into the wall. Izuku doesn't get up in time to prevent Katsuki from kicking him in the side and setting off an explosion that tosses Izuku into the wall, creating a crater. Salvation's mask begins to cover half of Izuku's mask. We told you we would shatter your illusions. Izuku and Salvation yell as they peel themselves out of the wall and uppercut him with their elbow. You still believe that nobody can be your equal. While this class is full of people who can rival and even surpass you, Izuku shouts as he slams Bakugo into the ground and kicks Katsuki in the chest. You don't even try to improve yourself anymore. You've had your quirk for 11 years, yet all you can do is shoot bigger explosions and fly in short bursts. What happens when you need to attack a villain who has a hostage? Are you going to blow them up too? You're so complacent with where you are, yet you dare to claim that you'll surpass everyone and become number one. Izuku head-butts Katsuki, breaking his nose. Don't insult us like that. You're a goddamn hypocritical bastard. Take me seriously. Why should I take you seriously when you won't extend the same courtesy? We all made it here. We're all training, improving, and trying our best to be heroes that the world can look up to. Deku shoots electric webs at Katsuki's left arm to paralyze it, but you're not interested in any of that. All you want to do is use your quirk to hurt people, never even attempting to find ways to use it for rescuing civilians or helping them with daily problems. We won't put up with that. Izuku slams Katsuki's head into a wall and Salvation starts whispering, if you insist on insulting all of our efforts, we'll destroy you. Is that clear? These words manage to break their way into the back of Katsuki's mind. Are they right? Is that true? Have I really become stagnant with my skills? Do I even deserve to be a hero? Katsuki resolves to worry about this after he finishes the fight. Katsuki explodes, shut up. I am the best. He grabs Izuku's hand and applies pressure to the area between the thumb and index finger. This loosens Izuku's grip enough for Katsuki to rip Izuku's hand off of his face. And it's time I show you why. Katsuki punches Izuku back to where Momo was stuck and points his right fist at him. The grenade-shaped bracers on my arms aren't just for show. They've been storing the sweat I don't use up in my explosions. Now, I'll show you the results. Enjoy my Big Bang Blast. Izuku attaches a web to the bracers and is barely able to change where it was aiming. Now, instead of being a headshot, it was a chest shot. The explosion rockets towards him, creating a ball of fire and tearing up the ground. This also results in Momo being in the line of fire again. Dang it, friendly fire again. Izuku is forced to take the explosion head-on or risk Momo getting blown to pieces, or is he? The smoke quickly clears, revealing Izuku in his damaged state. His mask has been completely blown off along with the rest of his suit's front and destroying Izuku's underwear. His face is fine, while his chest is heavily burned. What was that? Hyoka shouts through the earpiece. Hyoka had been listening to the entire conversation and had decided to let them argue and fight without her help. This was personal, a fated battle between rivals. She thought it rocked. Bakugo put his ally in danger, so I couldn't dodge it, or else Momo would die, Izuku says before falling backwards. Bakugo rushes towards him. Get up, Deku, it can't end like this. Stop screwing around. This isn't a real win for me unless you try harder. You never used that green lightning. You could have dodged that attack. Katsuki yells. No, I couldn't. Momo was in danger. Izuku coughs up blood before closing his eyes and whispering at a volume only Katsuki was close enough to hear. You shouldn't have wasted so much time fighting the bad guy. Time's up. Villain team wins, All Might says over the PA. Hyoka leaves her bomb behind and meets everyone on the second floor. She's shocked to see the craters in the wall, missing chunk of wall, giant trench in the floor, and the blood on the floor. Is anyone else concerned by the fact that Izuku has no genitals? She asks as soon as she sees Izuku on the ground. He does. His symbiote retracts them to the inside of his body whenever the situation calls for it. Bakugo mutters. You sound depressed, Momo says from her position on the floor. I'm not depressed, I just feel disappointed and hollow. I know No, Izuku could have stopped that last attack and kept fighting. He chose to stop, he chose to lose. Why? Heroes are supposed to win no matter what happens. Tears begin to leak from Katsuki's eyes, and he immediately wipes them away. Why did you give up? Am I not even worth beating? All Might arrives at the second floor to pick up Midoriya and carry him to Recovery Girl. You should come too, young Bakugo. Your nose is bleeding. Recovery Girl's office. The walk to Recovery Girl's office was a silent one outside. All Might too focused on his successor, and Bakugo too focused on his hollow victory. But on the inside, you let him win, why? We both know I took the brunt of the attack at the last minute. Salvation asked, confused about why he chose to lose when winning was an enhanced elbow strike away. I told him I would shatter his illusions, so I decided to shake the foundation of his beliefs. Heroes are supposed to beat the villain to win. If that scenario was real, the bomb would have been used to kill people. The bomb that Bakugo was supposed to retrieve would have been taken away and used to wipe out everyone nearby. He lost because he pursued the villain instead of the weapon, and he knows that. To make matters even worse for him, he knows I didn't use all of my abilities. In his mind, that is the worst blow to his pride, beating someone because they held back. The second worst blow comes from the fact he believes he almost killed me and Momo. Heroes aren't supposed to kill anyone, and he almost killed 2 heroes in training. That blood was really convincing, by the way. How did you get it? Izuku replies. I pulled it out of your numb hand and spat it out of your mouth when you made that fake cough. Salvation responds, satisfied that his question was answered. Oh my goodness, what happened to him? Recovery Girl screams. A training accident. All Might responds, young Bakugo here broke his nose in combat as well. I swear you people have no regard for safety. It looks like Izuku was hit with a bomb. He'll be here for a while, Recovery Girl sighs, making Bakugo flinch. Recovery Girl kisses Bakugo's head to fix his broken nose and sends him back to class. You can leave too, All Might. You have a class to teach. Once All Might leaves, Recovery Girl waits a few moments before saying, unlike those two, I know how to tell when someone is actually unconscious. You can stop pretending, forcing Izuku to sit up with a sheepish smile. What gave me away? He asks for just in case he needs to fake unconsciousness again later. Your shoulders were tensed up, she replies before asking why he pretended to be knocked out. I was teaching that other guy who walked in a lesson. Izuku replies. Anyways, you don't need to stay here. Your burns are already healing thanks to your symbiote. Recovery Girl replies. I know I can heal myself, but I was hoping you could fix my hands while I was here. Izuku says while lifting up his arms to show her his hands, which he still can't move. How did you go and do something like that? Recovery Girl asks as she examines the badly damaged and bleeding palms of his hands. I clapped my hands while using One for All. This was actually better than what I was expecting. I half expected to blow the skin off of them completely. Recovery girl starts smacking him with her cane. Idiot, I can't believe you did that while you thought it'd blow your skin off. Of all the stupid, reckless things you've done this year, this is the stupidest and most reckless one of all. Ouch. I'm sorry, okay. I was more focused on stopping my classmate from burning alive. Izuku shouts as his shoulder gets smacked by the cane multiple times. This causes Recovery Girl to sigh and kiss Izuku's palms. You're just like Tashinori, heroic but moronic. You better stay here and rest. Those kisses should be knocking you out in a couple seconds. Izuku immediately passes out. I guess you had less stamina than I thought, Recovery Girl says as she picks up Izuku and puts him on the couch. Who knew that a woman that old could be so strong? She silently leaves the room to go grab his clothes. Back with Bakugo. All you want to do is use your quirk to hurt people. Bakugo remembers those words as the image of Izuku spitting blood pops into his head. I went too far. I nearly killed the two of them. I let my temper get out of control again. You don't even try to improve yourself anymore. You've had your quirk for 11 years, yet all you can do is shoot bigger explosions and fly in short bursts. He was right. I haven't been using my quirk as well as I should be able to. I can't even recreate that attack without my bracers. I need to find a way to be more versatile. What happens when you need to attack a villain who has a hostage? I don't know, Bakugo sighs. He never really thought about it. Today, let's consider our fight unfinished. But one day I'll come back ready to wipe the floor with that oversized head of yours. This is the day Bakugo decided that change was necessary. After waking up in the nurse's office, Izuku returned to class and received praise from his classmates. And he immediately turned shy. It was nothing really. Nothing? You almost soloed Momo and went blow for blow with Bakugo, Kirishima says. He still lost and got his clothes blown to pieces, Toru states. Fumikid shudders in the background. That green thing was cool, he was funny too, Ochiko says after pushing her way through the slowly growing crowd. The mask comes back. Thank you. Dad doesn't appreciate my humor, Salvation says. The mask leaves. Izuku's eyes widen. Fuck, he thinks. Why is he calling you Dad? Kyoka asks while pushing her way through the crowd. That's pretty weird, Tsuyu says bluntly. Izuku flinched as soon as she hopped into the circle. He calls me Dad because part of his DNA comes from me, just like a father-son relationship. Izuku sighs, realizing his slip-up and already knowing the follow-up question. He was hoping to tell her this in private, but keeping it a secret from the rest of the class isn't an option anymore. The last thing Izuku wants is for people to start forming their own theories about who Salvation's mommy is. Who's the mom? Kyoka asks. You, Izuku says weakly. This one word instantly silences the entire class. Aizawa-sensei stops snoring in his sleep, as if even he knows that shit just went down. How am I the mother? Kyoka shouts. Izuku can't tell if the redness on her face is from anger or embarrassment. When you slammed your earphone jack into my head, you pulled out a piece of Salvation's brain and it got embedded within the jack. When Salvation recalled the pieces of himself that I vomited out, his brain piece drew blood and dragged it to the rest of the symbiote. This caused Salvation to begin undergoing a mutation. Once your DNA was assimilated, Salvation decided that we were his parents now. Izuku answers. Does that mean you're carrying my baby? Kyoka smirks. Izuku looks at her face and she mouths, we aren't done with this to him. This sends Kaminari, Kirishima, and Mina into a giggle fit. Up yours, Piku, Izuku shouts. The itsy-bitsy spider can bite, Kirishima jokes. Anybody who makes another spider joke will be on the receiving end of my venom. Izuku spits a clear, colorless liquid at the floor to prove his threat is legitimate. This liquid is way too thick to be regular spit. You can hear the venom in his voice. Mina whispers to Toru, the invisible girl. Since when could you do that? Kyoka asks. He never told her about that ability. I could always do it. My powers are spider-based. The venom sacs are stored in my throat, and I can either spray it or use it to coat my teeth. That's why I have the option to inject. But biting people to inject the venom is gross. I always end up with a bad taste in my mouth that can't be fixed with toothpaste and mouthwash. I find that spitting venom is much better and safer. The venom loses most of its punch after coming into prolonged contact with the chemicals in the polluted city air. Izuku explains after wiping the excess venom dripping down his chin onto his sleeves. Okay, but that doesn't explain why you have no genitals, Mizo Shoji says. The mask comes back. Oh, I can answer that. Salvation silently begs Izuku to let him explain this one. Fine, Izuku replies. Due to my home within Dad's body, I'm allowed to do all sorts of things to his body. So one day I asked my dad a question. Why do men have a giant weak spot between their legs like they're a video game boss monster? Izuku's only idea was that it was to even up the playing field and prevent them from being completely unstoppable at some point in the future. I said fuck that and rearranged Izuku's lower body to give me the power to retract his genitalia whenever the situation is dangerous. Salvation explains. That's overpowered. Hanta Siro whines, you're immune to dick punches. Eijiro Kirishima looks away and starts whistling. That's almost as manly as my technique. He thinks to himself. Anyways, your powers are so cool. You were all like thwip, thwip, and Bakugo was all like boom kaboom. Toru interrupts, eager to change the topic. Where is Bakugo anyway? I haven't seen him at all since I left Recovery Girl, Izuku asks. He's been in the gym training ever since class ended, Kaminari answers after a moment of silence. The only reply that Izuku can think of is good. This signals the end of the conversation and the class becomes empty. Izuku, Achiko, and Kyoka reach the gate, and the girls prepare to return to their previous positions on Izuku's body. I'm telling you this right now. I'm almost out of web fluid and my spinnerets are starting to burn. So, if blood starts leaking out of my wrist at some point or the webbing falls short of the next building, don't panic. Izuku warms. The last thing he wants is to hear them screaming into his ear. Sure, it won't hurt him, but who likes being screamed at? And just like Izuku said, blood began leaking from his wrist halfway to Achiko's house. Achiko gets home, and Izuku begins swinging to Kyoka's house. His web barely misses a building once they reach Kyoka's block. What do we do? Kyoka asks as they get closer to the black pavement. We could just land. Falling 5 stories wouldn't do any damage to me. Izuku suggests. But what about me? My body probably couldn't handle the force created by impacting the ground, Kyoka says. Oh yeah. I got this. Salvation sighs as he shoots green and purple tendrils out of Izuku's arms and attaches them to a building. Thanks, Salvation, Kyoka says as they land in front of her house. The driveway is empty, so Izuku sighs in relief. Her parents aren't home. You're welcome, Salvation says, but the mask hadn't formed. She can't hear you. Yes, I can. Wait, what? Izuku screams. It's muffled, but I can definitely hear him. How? My best guess is that my hearing is so good that I can hear him inside of your body. These earphone jacks are for more than attacking. Kyoka explains. This makes sense to Izuku. Sound is created by a bunch of vibrations traveling through the air, earth, and water. Anyone with super hearing could feasibly hear Salvation, especially since Salvation is legitimately speaking, therefore causing vibrations, not doing some weird type of psychic communication. What makes this even more sensible to Izuku is what happened on the first day. The class was full of loud, rambunctious teens, yet Kyoka still heard him lightly tap the window. From the opposite wall. By Kyoka, Izuku exclaims as his spider sense goes crazy. He hops onto a building's wall and runs away. The reason for this is made evident when a purple car pulls up in the driveway moments later. The car door opens and Kyoka is hit by a wave of music. Hey Dad, how was work? Kyoka asks. It was great. I'm being paid to work on a video game's soundtrack. Her dad says with a grin that could light a dark abyss. The next day? What's going on? Izuku asks as he turns a corner and sees all of his classmates filling the corridor that contains the girls' locker room and nothing else. Katsuki answers the question first. Kyoka heard a bunch of heavy breathing coming from their locker room. My pervert senses are tingling. Let's go, Katsuki. Izuku gets a dangerous glint in his eyes, and he grabs Katsuki before wall crawling up to the front. They may have hated each other for most of middle school, but one thing made them allies more often than sworn enemies. Their deep hatred for perverts. It all started when they were kids, A grown man had accidentally brushed his hand against Inko's, but several times, and pinched it twice. This led to Inko becoming upset and the boys to pure rage. In the span of 3 minutes, the man had a black eye and a badly damaged crotch. Throughout middle school, they would rehabilitate any pervert that got too horny for their own good. "I'm not going in there," Toru whimpers. The sound had devolved into animalistic snarls. "Me neither," all of the other girls said. "We got this," Katsuki growls Momo, "once we go and barricade the floor behind us." "Please. You plan to enter the girls' locker room. That's against the rules." Tenya gasps, hands chopping air. "Screw the rules. That creature is making them uncomfortable about going into the one place nobody should fear. I'm going to fix that." Izuku snarls. Green electricity starts to spark across his knuckles. Go get it, Tiger," Hyoka says, slowly backing away from the door so that Mono can quickly block it off. "Yeah, you got this," Mina claims after seeing the bloodlust and rage in their eyes. Izuku leads the charge, Katsuki following behind screaming, "Die fucker." Momo shuts the door behind them immediately and presses her body weight against it. 50 seconds of no sound passes by eerily. Class 1A waits, the air becoming thick with tension. Then they hear a shrill scream, followed by a roar of primal fury from Katsuki and a yell from Izuku. The sounds of metals clanging, wood cracking, and glass shattering began to ravage the lockers, along with several thundering explosions courtesy of one pissed-off Katsuki. "Die, die, die. Put down the bras right now." "Never. They're my spoils of war." "Your hands are about to become a spoil of war." "Your urn will be my spoil of war." "You're gonna kill me." That's the fucking point. "Hey, bro code violation." "Screw the bro code. You broke the decent human being code." A horrifying scream decimated the ears of Class 1A, petrifying them with the agony the beast had to experience. Izuku roars as he throws the pervert through the locker room door, the hinges literally exploding from the force. Ijiro barely has time to duck under the door. The perpetrator was Mineta, his twitching and burnt form on display for all to see. Both of his hands stuck together on his pants by electric webs. His face is bruised and bloody, 2 purple balls missing from his head. Overall, he looked almost dead. Katsuki walks through the entrance with a satisfied grin on his face. Aizawa walks into the hallway to investigate the noise, sees what happened, and promptly turns around to go find Recovery Girl. He knows better than to get in the way of divine retribution. "Come on, the bell didn't even ring yet," Aizawa sighs. He doesn't get paid enough for any of this. Exchanging anxious looks, the other girls ran inside, while Momo prevents the rest of the boys from entering the lockers. "Deku," Ochiko calls through the smoke. "Christ, the place looked like a nuclear war zone. There's craters everywhere. Where are you?" "I'm here." His voice sounds weak and shaky, like he was knocking on death's door. When the girls finally found him, he was curled up in a ball, his eyes shut tight and hands firmly gripping his ears. "What's wrong?" Ochiko asks. Izuku points to the floor, and they see the ground covered in bras and panties. "My spider sense has been blaring ever since I stepped into this room. It feels like my head is going to split open in here." "Oh," Hyoka says as she begins clearing the clothing off the floor. She doubts any of the girls will want to wear them again, especially since some of the clothing articles were sitting in a pool of Izuku's venom. At least, she hoped that was venom. "You can open your eyes now." The first thing Izuku sees after opening his eyes is the amused grin on Kyoka's face. Class 1A went to class. Well, most of 1A went to class. Mineta went to Recovery Girl in order to have his wounds treated. Now that the commotion has ended, we have an assignment. Aizawa pauses. Class 1A begin to feel nervous. Is this going to be another crazy test? You guys need to pick your class representative and deputy representative. Class 1A sighs in relief that this is just a normal school thing and not something crazy difficult. The silence is soon broken by a chorus of people screaming to let them do it. Aizawa just groans as climbs back into his sleeping bag. Meanwhile, the sleeping entity living inside of Izuku is growing more and more restless. Eventually, the noise becomes too much for him to handle. The mask forms. "Shut the fuck up." Salvation shouts before one of his abilities manifests. A sonic shriek diagonally tears through the classroom. This sends most of Class 1A to the ground, the only exceptions being Mizo Shoji. He made his ears vanish as soon as he heard the shriek start, and Izuku himself. What the fuck was that? Izuku is dumbfounded at this random ability. I have no idea, but more importantly, why are heroes in training over here yelling like children? Salvation is seething at this point. He takes his first nap in 4 years, and somebody decides to wake him up. They want to be class rep or deputy rep, and before you ask, these positions are important because the Class 1A rep gets to speak at the sports festival and gain a fan base sooner than their peers in Class 1A and B. Both position holders have more opportunities to interact with the pros. In summary, they're more likely to be the famous heroes. All Might being one of few exceptions to this, as he never attempted to be a representative. Izuku calmly explains. Okay, that makes a little sense, but there has to be a better way to go about this. Salvation responds, preferably a way that doesn't wake him up again. As a matter of fact, there is a better way. I suggest that we do this the best way, the democratic way. We shall have an election. Due to the fact that we barely know each other, whoever garners multiple votes has made the biggest impact on their peers and is obviously the best choice to lead us. Ida Tenya declares, swiping the air to punctuate each sentence. This also has the side effect of stopping Azui from rebuking the idea. Aizawa chimes in. I don't care how it's done. It just needs to be done in the next 6 minutes. I need to fill out the paperwork, and you guys need to head over to the support hero department in order to tell them what you need. This catches Izuku's interest. He already has the blueprints for the tech he needs. He just couldn't actually make them because he lacks the resources necessary for them. Class 1A decides to hold an election, and the results are quite shocking to some people. They chose me to be the deputy representative. I hope I don't let them down. Momo thinks as she looks at the results board and sees her 3 votes. I got 5 votes. How? I barely interact with 3 people, and I didn't even vote for myself. Izuku thinks. I got 0 votes. Kyoka, Fumikage, Achiko, and Ida think to themselves. All right, you have your representatives. Head to the support department and speak to Power Loader. I have forms to fill out. Aizawa grumbles the last part. Stupid papers ruining his naps. This is why he never wanted to teach in the first place. Aizawa would spend the next 30 minutes alternating between signing forms and cursing Present Mike. Support department. So you're Aizawa's students. Power Loader rubs his chin. The class is a lot bigger than he expected it to be. He's going to need a little bit of help here. He walks to a back door and opens it up. May, front and center. He shouts into the brightly lit room full of students. A few moments later, a girl with yellow eyes that have crosshairs in them stumbles through the door. Izuku takes a cursory glance at her appearance and notices that she has a coat of dirt on her skin. Her hair has a nearly clear oil in it, and she looks like she hasn't slept in a week. It's clear that she's either obsessed with her work or she's obsessed with avoiding self-care. What do you want? I was building my babies. May asks. You've been drafted into helping Class 1A create their support items. I'll help the people who have no idea what they need. You'll help the students who know exactly what they need. Power Loader instructs before telling Class 1A to split into 2 groups. Izuku walks over to Mei Hatsum along with Kyoka, Mizo, Mashireo, and Shoto. Momo speaks up, my quirk doesn't require any support items. I can just make my own. This catches Izuku's interest. She has access to unlimited resources and items. He decides that he should really be careful around her. The last thing he needs is to have his webs and tech reverse engineered and used by someone else. Your teacher told me about you. He wants you to pay attention. Your quirk requires you to have an acute understanding of the inner mechanisms in the object you're creating. He figured that coming to a place where everyone has advanced engineering knowledge would help you. Power Loader replies. Shortly after this, the 2 groups walks into the support lab full of raw materials. All right, tell me what babies you need. May asks while getting uncomfortably close to Izuku's face. Izuku pulls out a blueprint for the web bombs, a motion-sensitive grenade that releases synthetic web fluid to trap his foe. Nice baby, it's super detailed. Building it should be relatively easy. May snatches the blueprint out of his hands and scans the sheet. but there seems to be a part missing. Some type of canister that should be inserted right about here and here. She points to two half circles of empty space. Yeah, Izuku smirks. Those parts are classified information that you aren't privy to at the moment. Maybe if you do a good job with what you got, I'll let you make more babies for me. Izuku and Mei get smacked in the back of the head by an irate Kyoka. Can we move this along? Kyoka yells at them. Sure, Mei replies before asking her what baby she needs. This process continues until all of them have spoken. Kyoka wants cubes with speakers on all four sides of them. The speakers have an adjustable volume setting and a frequency changer. This allows her to have even greater control over the intensity and pitch of her attacks. Mashareo wants a bow staff that can be twisted apart into two eskrima sticks, then put back together, with the ability to be collapsed into a pocket-sized cylinder. He also wants it to have an adjustable electric charge. Mizo needs nothing. He just didn't want to stay with the larger group. Shoto wants a wearable heat generator to speed up his defrosting after overusing the ice aspect of quirk in battle. With Power Loader. Power Loader is having much less success. The only student with an inkling of tech knowledge over here is the blonde guy with an explosive temper and the blonde one who fries whatever electronic is within 3 feet of his powers. Lunchtime. So, which one of you people voted for me? Izuku asks as he looks at the people who assembled at his table. Kyoka, Fumikage, Achiko, and Ida. Izuku isn't exactly fond of Ida's strictness, but Achiko seems to like him for some reason. Casting him out of the group would be rude at this point. So, Izuku decides to just grit his teeth and bear it for now. They all raise their hands. Me too, a familiar voice says from behind Izuku. No fucking way, Bakugo voted for me, Izuku thinks. That can't be possible. People don't change overnight. What is this? Bleach? Naruto? Dragon Ball Z? Really? You don't seem like the type of guy who would vote for anyone besides himself. Kyoka snorts. It'd be much more believable if you told her that Endeavor voted for All Might in a popularity poll. I don't give a fuck if you believe the truth is false. You can fuck off with your fucking disbelief. Screw you, I'm going back to my table. Katsuki retorts, many explosions occurring on his palms as he storms off. Petulant brat, Kyoka shouts after him. Codependent weakling. Cocky prick. Should I intervene? Izuku asks himself before dismissing the idea. They'll be fine. This is harmless. A few moments later. Come dump. Kyoka shouts. Jizz chugger. Katsuki yells. Okay, maybe not. Who knew things would escalate this fast? A certain white-haired cosmic entity sneezes. Such vulgar obscenities are unbecoming of UA students. I cannot let you tarnish the reputation of this illustrious establishment. Ida shouts, sending Achiko into a giggle fit. Ida is questioned about his vernacular, and it's revealed that he's the youngest brother of Ingenium and a member of a rich family. Soon after this, the alarm starts blaring. Code 3, everyone evacuate. One of the third years shout, causing the student body to stampede towards the door. Izuku's group is quickly separated from Izuku and Kyoka. Once this occurs, he grabs Kyoka and leaps for the ceiling. What's going on? Who broke in? Izuku thinks as he peers out the window. He scans outside and sees the UA barrier destroyed. Paparazzi and reporters flood the courtyard only to be stopped by a familiar scarf, followed by a familiar voice yelling stop. Everyone calm down. Izuku shouts, but nobody listens. Okay, screw it. Izuku claps his hands while using the bare minimum of one for all. This creates a gust of wind that knocks everyone over like bowling pins. It's just the media. Quit running around like chickens with their heads shot off. Izuku says as everyone regains their footing. That's our class rep. Calm in the face of danger, Kaminari thinks to himself from the back of the group. I wish I could be that cool and confident. He continues to look on as Izuku guides everyone back to the lunchroom. I wonder why Lunch Rush didn't do anything. Wait, where did he go? This is weird. Kaminari scans the room and notices that the pro hero is nowhere in sight. I have a bad feeling in my chest, Denki Kaminari whispers to himself. Man, the support department sure knows what they're doing, Achiko says while patting her new tech. She had wanted a way to control her movements once she starts using zero gravity on herself. Power Loader suggested a pair of wrist thrusters that would allow her to change directions in midair. I'm just surprised that they finished all this in a couple hours. Denki remarks. He ended up receiving a golden yellow device that he is supposed to wear on his right forearm. It fires the pointers and contains a dial that allows Denki to choose the pointer he wants his electricity to be directed towards in case multiple of the pointers are set up. There's also a black and yellow piece of plastic that sits on his right ear. If he pushes the button on the center, it will display a holographic image that shows information about his pointers. He calls these gadgets his sharpshooter gear. While they did build the 0 and 100 pointer robots in 10 minutes as an entrance exam, Power Loader smirks. This shocks Class 1A, except for Shoto and Momo. The recommended students had never seen the 0 and 100 pointers. So, you guys are the reason I almost got stepped on. Achiko huffs. That was her least favorite near-death experience. And that's saying a lot when you remember the time where she almost floated into a spinning helicopter blade as a kid. Nah, the 0 and 100 pointers had a safety measure programmed into them. They couldn't take a step forward if the sensors registered the presence of an applicant within stepping distance. The most that would happen is a raised foot hanging over you. You weren't in any real danger, Power Loader comments. This also gains the ire of Izuku. I broke my body for no reason. He thinks as his right eye starts to twitch. If he had known that the robot would stay in one place and hover over her, he would have spent some time on lowering the power of his punch to a setting that's less than turn your bones into powder. Izawa walks, stumbles, into the support department, and Power Loader shoots him a look of pity. He knows that feeling all too well. At least half his day is spent writing letters of recommendations, signing for more materials and chemicals, and filling out a bunch of forms that are just going to end up sitting on some corporate bigwig's desk for God knows how long, then get skimmed over before being accepted. Paperwork sucks, Izawa groans before letting out a 10 seconds long yawn. He had finally filled out the forms required in order to make the appointing of Izuku and Momo as Class 1A reps official when a gust of wind blew them out of the window. Izawa could have sworn it wasn't open last time he checked, and into a bird nest. The birds had a field day ripping the forms up with their beaks and talons. His hatred for birds ignited because this meant that Izawa had to start over and waste another half hour. At this point, he's in a really bad mood and is in need of some serious stress relief. Mr. Izawa is almost excited to punch a villain in the face as soon as he leaves for the day. Put on your costumes, grab your gear, and head to the bus out front. We're taking a field trip. Izawa yawns again. Izuku winches at this. His costume was blown to Kingdom Come, and his new costume was delayed due to a malfunction that caused the eyes of his mask to start moving on their own. Oh yeah, Izuku has to wear his gym uniform due to his costume being blown apart in a way where being used as a baby blanket is the only viable use for it. Izawa announces. Fine. Izuku grumbles. He hates how restrictive the gym uniforms are. Twisting in midair is going to be such a hassle. Minato would make it back to class just in time to avoid being left behind. USJ? Izuku was definitely living the dream. So was Achiko, judging by how she was hopping from foot to foot with a smile on her face. In front of them was the space hero, 13, and they were standing in the USJ. I'm sure you are all aware of my quirk. Black hole, 13 said. Of course they did. 13 is the 5th ranked rescue hero. Yes, it has saved many lives in rescue situations. Ida exclaimed. Indeed it has, but my quirk is one that can kill quite easily. Some of you have quirks like that, don't you? Izuku's jaw clenched. In this world of regulated quirks, it might not seem that way. But the fact is, some people have quirks that can easily kill if they lose control for a single instant. With Izawa's test, you learn the limits of your quirk and how to adapt to them. With All Might's combat training, you learn what it's like to use your quirk against others and the danger that brings. With me, I hope that you learn your quirks are there to save lives, not to harm others with. Bakugo flinches. That is why you are at UA, to learn how to help people and become the best heroes you can be. Thank you for listening. It was a good speech and everyone cheered to it. For Izuku, he found that he wasn't the only one who struggled with his quirk. All those years of wallowing in self-pity as his strength broke everything he touched, resigning himself to a lonely future. All the while, 13 was dealing with a much more destructive power and turning it into the greatest tool for saving people from disasters. Alright, now that the speech is done, let's head over to Dash. Aizawa gets cut off as he hears the sound of footsteps behind him. He jerks his head backwards and sees some people charging out of a black mist. Wait, he knows some of them. He put them behind bars last week. 13. Get the students out of here and go call for backup, Aizawa barks before pulling his goggles over his eyes. Time for some stress relief. You can't take all of them on your own. Your fighting style is more suited for one-on-one fights and capturing. Izuku says. No hero is a one-trick pony. Now go, Aizawa shouts before leaping down the stairs to engage the villains. Class 1A rushes to the door, but their retreat is intercepted by that black mist from before. Now that it's closer, they can see that the mist has yellow eyes. Sorry, kids, I'm afraid I can't let you do that. It says, allow us to introduce ourselves. We are the League of Villains. Our information says that All Might is supposed to be with you, but he doesn't appear to be here yet. I guess we'll have to pass the time by killing you until he shows up. Get it right, Kirojiri. We agreed to call it the V Club. A man with light blue hair and a hand attached to his face yells from the back of the villain horde. I refuse to call it that. Anyways, time for you to dash. Kirojiri gets cut off by 13 activating Black Hole to pull him in. 13, wait. Izuku shouts as his spider sense activates. We were going to leave you alone, but you forced my hand, Kirojiri states before opening 2 portals with his mist. One in front of 13 and another behind. The back of 13's suit gets sucked into the redirected black hole along with a couple layers of skin. 13 deactivated the quirk before any more damage can be done and collapses to the ground. Now that 13 is out of the way, we can play. Kirojiri laughs. Izuku's spider senses start tingling, and he grabs hold of Kyoka and Momo because they were the closest before yelling move. Say hi to the others for me, he says before sending a wave of mist at the students. The mist covers the distance quickly. The only people who can evade it by themselves are Ida and Izuku. Recipro boost. The engines in Ida's legs activate and he speeds over to Achiko, Rikito, Sugar Guy, Mina, Siro, Tape Boy, and Mizo, hentai waiting to happen. He drags each of them away from the mist. Izuku pulls the girls close before jumping into the air away from the mist. You won't get away, Izuku Midoriya, Kirojiri declares before making the rest of the mist converge on them. He knows my name, Izuku thinks as he lands next to Ida. Keep them safe, or else. Izuku commands before jumping backwards and dodging the mist that was about to ensnare him. He rolls before pushing himself up diagonally. This turns him into a flying mini cannonball. Clever, but not clever enough, Kirojiri states as the black mist splits into 5 separate streams that fly around Izuku's ball form. Got to think quick, Izuku thinks as the mist starts closing around him. Don't do it, Salvation warns. There's no other choice, Izuku retorts. Getting warped doesn't sound too bad, Salvation suggests. We're doing this, Izuku says as green lightning arcs across his right band's middle finger and red veins of power appear on it. Flick. A wall of air punches a hole through the black mist and caves in the ground underneath him. Izuku looks down at his middle finger and sees that backlash bent his finger backwards. The bone is starting to poke out and the skin has blackened. If Salvation wasn't there to numb the pain, Izuku would probably be on his knees screaming in the manliest way possible and crying, again, in the manliest way possible. Izuku dives through the opening and lands on the ground, leaving spiderweb cracks in the ground. Nice try, Onigiri. Looks like I'm too quick and clever for you, he comments. Oh really, Kirojiri says with a hint of annoyance in his voice. He's still miffed at that Onigiri remark. Really? Look down. He does. Shit. Black wisps of mist are leaving the cracked ground around him. Good day, sir, Kirojiri says as a column of mist envelopes Izuku. He hums before turning to look at Kyoka and Momo. You're next. 2 more columns of mist appear. Ida tries to grab Kyoka's arm, but he's too late. As soon as his hand wraps around her arm, she vanishes. So did his hand. Ahhhhhhh. Ida screams while clutching his handless right arm. Such a shame, Kirojiri TSKS. Foolish children, they don't know when to cut their losses and adopt the philosophy of every man for himself. Don't bother trying to make a phone call. Kirojiri turns to look at Achiko. She has a phone in her shaking hands. We're jamming the signal. You can't call for help. Kirojiri informs them. Run to the school, call for backup, and find a nurse. Mizo Shoji says, we'll watch your back. I'll melt open the door for you. Mina shoots a stream of acid that quickly eats through whatever the door was made of. Ida is in no condition to be moving, much less running. His arm is pouring out blood. Achiko interjects while gesturing to Ida, who is currently on his knees and screaming into his other arm. Without his hand and wrist, the vein in his arm is allowed to dump blood onto the earth. Nobody else is fast enough to get to the school in time. I have to do this. Achiko, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but we have to focus on the task at hand. Ida says, while struggling to get back on his feet. I'm being really nice to let you have this conversation. The only reason I'm not stepping in is because I'm curious to see if he passes out from blood loss now or on the way to you to A's main building, Kirojiri states. Tamura works better with a time limit anyways. Izuku's warp. We find Izuku plummeting to his doom. You just had to insult the guy, Salvation states. How was I supposed to know he'd drop us from near the USJ's ceiling? Izuku replies. Don't antagonize the guy who could warp you into a volcano. Salvation screams. Less yelling at me, more figuring out a way to avoid going splat. Puddle of goo is a great look on you, but I couldn't pull it off, Izuku responds while looking at the ground that is rapidly approaching. I have an idea, but it may break your arm in the process, Salvation suggests. So, breaking a finger is a too big risk, but breaking my fucking arm is perfectly fine? Izuku questions. Yes, now punch the air with one for all. The wind should slow your fall. Salvation commands. If this kills me, I'm going to haunt you for the rest of your life. Izuku shouts before charging one for all into his right arm. He swings his arm forward at an angle. This results in the wind forming a tornado once it hits the ground. Izuku gets sucked closer to the tornado and starts spinning along with it. The force of the wind, pushing him up, is able to overpower the gravity, pushing him down. This is just enough to start slowing his descent. In the end, it still doesn't stop him from crashing into the ground and bouncing like a ball. He comes to a rolling stop a few feet away from the landing zone. Broken arm for the win. Ugh, my arm feels like I slammed a car door on it. Izuku groans before hearing the sound of numerous footsteps coming his way. The spider sense activates, and Izuku feels the need to hide. The sound of footsteps get closer, and one of the villain's bodies began casting a shadow over Izuku's supine form. There was somebody here. I swear I saw someone drop from the sky before that tornado came, said a villain. This villain is a vertical beast, towering over everyone else in the group and casting his shadow over Izuku. Well, apparently, you were just hallucinating. Another villain replies. In comparison to the other guy, he's much more normal. Why can't they see me? Izuku questions as the group of villains walk towards the mountain zone. A puddle of green and purple goo with eyes exits Izuku's chest and looks around. You're blending in with the ground, Salvation whispers. Why do I have so many different powers? Izuku groans before asking Salvation where the villains are going. Salvation looks into the distance and sees the same giant man heading towards a mountain. They are heading towards the mountains. Salvation answers. Izuku props himself up on one arm and becomes visible again. We're going after them. They're trying to hurt my friends. They have to pay. Izuku yells, his anger taking hold of him and giving Salvation a power boost. Yes, they'll regret making an enemy of us. But before we deal with that, your clothing is too restrictive for us to fight together effectively. Salvation agrees before wrapping around Izuku's body. Let's change that. The symbiote strips Izuku of everything except his underwear and web bombs, then begins to form a new costume composed entirely of itself. The suit is primarily green, with a purple spider stretching across his torso and back. The eyes of his mask are white with black outlines. Since when could you do this, and why are you still green and purple? Izuku asks. This would save so much money on clothes. Since last night. I tested it out when you were sleeping. To answer the second question, changing my colors isn't necessary at the moment, so I didn't waste the effort. Salvation response. He does a lot of things when Izuku is sleeping. For example, he surfs the web and watches anime that Izuku isn't fond of watching, like a certain magical index. Okay, let's show them why you don't enter a spider's web. Izuku states, with Kyoka and Momo. Kyoka and Momo are set on the ground with their backs to the cliff's edge. They look up to see a bunch of men and women with bat wings, bird wings, dragon wings, etc. They look down and sees Denki on a lower part of the mountain. A little help here. Denki shouts at them. He's currently being boxed in by a group of 6 similar-looking men. Looks like Shigaraki managed to recruit a family of villains. Just zap them. Momo yells. They have rubber transformation quirks. My electricity isn't being conducted. He replies while taking another step back. Kyoka picks up the sound of blood dripping onto the floor and starts looking around. She doesn't notice the extra weight on her arm until she looks down at it. Kyoka unleashes a shrill shriek that draws the attention of Momo. What's wrong? Are you injured? Momo questions with concern in her voice. Ida's hand is still on me, she yells while waving her earphone jacks around. Momo gags after accidentally looking at the severed hand. Kyoka carefully pries Ida's severed hand from her arm and gingerly sets it on the ground. Help! Denki yells, his back up against the side of the mountain. He doesn't try to throw a punch because he knows he'll be dogpiled. Cover your ears. Kyoka commands before plugging her earphone jacks into her purple stereo cubes and tosses them into the air. She channels the sound of her heartbeat into them and unleashes a wave of debilitating sound. The flying foes are knocked to the same area, but the rubber men's advance isn't halted. Bullshit, Kyoka states, while looking at the 6 men. We need to get down there and help, Momo tells Kyoka before her chest starts glowing. An extremely long rope slides out of Momo's chest, and she ties it to a rock jutting out of the mountain. She kicks the rock to make sure it's sturdy and stuck to the mountain. Who goes first? Kyoka asks. I'll go. I've always wanted to smack somebody with a baseball bat. Momo decides, before sliding down the rope. It doesn't take long for the rock to break off the mountain due to the new pressure, meaning that the rope is no longer anchored to anything. Kyoka leaps for the falling rope and ends up holding both the dangling Momo and the rock. The flying villains recover from Kyoka's assault and take to the skies once again. This time they set their sights on the women. I have an idea, Kyoka thinks as she is slowly dragged over the cliff edge. Momo, move over to the part of the rope with the rock on it. I'll use the weight of the rock to lower you down, she yells. Momo reaches for the other end of the rope, but a strong gust of wind pushes it away from her reach. Nice try, but we were warned about your powers, Momo, said a woman with black dragon wings and blonde hair. You were warned, but you still underestimate them, Momo shouts before pushing off of the mountain and back flipping onto her back. She quickly ties the rope around the villain's wings/arms before tightening the rope. Bet you didn't know I'm a gymnast. Now, eat dirt. Momo pushes them back towards the mountain's sloped side and slams the dragon girl into the wall face first. Let go, Momo told Kyoka. Kyoka reluctantly lets go. You're crazy, this is a 20-feet slide. Momo's makeshift skateboard screams. Did I say you could talk? Momo asks before shoving the side of her face back onto the mountain and holding it there with her foot. This is how they stay for the rest of the slide down the mountain with jagged rocks jutting out of it. The villain would later swear that Momo hit most of them on purpose. And dismount, Momo says before jumping off of the villain's back. She's kind of scary, Kyoka thinks while watching from above. The man with phoenix wings dive bombs Kyoka. As soon as he gets close, Kyoka rolls to the side and the villain gets smacked by an earphone jack. Gosh, stupid kid. I'll snap your neck for that one. He growls. His wings catch fire and he starts flapping them. Each flap sends a wave of fire towards Kyoka. He left an opening, Kyoka thinks to herself as she sidesteps into the gap between flame waves. She doesn't escape unscathed though, the edges of her hair have been singed by the heat. She plugs her jacks into her boots and attacks his ears. This makes the man incredibly dizzy, to the point that his aim is completely shot. Hyoka charges towards the man and punches him in the nose, putting the adult flat on his back and breaking his nose in the process. For those of you that aren't aware, flying animals tend to have very brittle, hollow bones. Hyoka unleashes another wave of balance, destroying sound, and forces the rest of the flying foes to land haphazardly. She approaches the fallen foes, and one thought comes to mind. Let's rock. Do you think we'll make it in time? Salvation asks as they run after the villains. If only they had something to attach their webs to. Being able to attach a web to the air would also be a helpful skill. I don't know, but I'm definitely going to be an urban hero. These powers suck when I'm pursuing villains in a place without buildings. Izuku replies. So, you're saying that all a villain needs to do in order to escape us is run into a park? Salvation comments. Probably, Izuku responds. With Kaminari, Hyoka, and Momo. Stay down. Momo shouts as she slams a baseball bat into the stomach of a brown-haired man who is made of rubber. The man looks down at his stomach. That was rude. I didn't even attack anyone. The most you can charge me with is trespassing, and you try to collapse my digestive system. Heroes these days, he remarked. Every generation gets worse than the last. I miss the days when heroes had to wait for just cause. A man with brown hair replies. If you look closely enough, you would see the occasional gray hair mixed with the brown. Momo swings her baseball bat again, only to hit more rubber. Nice try, but our organs are rubber too. Blunt force is completely useless. They taunt her. Think Momo, how do you hurt rubber? Momo questions while dodging an elongated arm. Heat. Momo realizes before her chest glows pink. A hot pink gun pops out, and she catches it with both hands. Denki, keep shocking them. Momo shouts, ducking under another swing. That didn't work before. Denki reminds her. Their rubber bodies won't conduct the electricity, but the heat from that electricity can melt the rubber, or at the very least it will reduce the range of their attacks. Momo yells. She pulls the trigger and blue electricity begins to gather at the tip of the gun barrel. Scatter! One of the villains shouts before stretching their arms towards the edge of a cliff above them. He's hoping to get outside of their range and let the electricity disperse in the air. No, you don't, Momo thinks before pointing the gun at the rising villain and releasing the trigger. Two metal prongs connected to wires shoot out of the gun and digs into one of the villain's arms. That arm begins to slowly melt, and the villain drops to the floor once more, this time as a man of flesh and blood. He always did have the lowest pain tolerance. A man with black hair comments before throwing a punch towards Denki. Denki ducks and grabs onto the limb. Momo, I have an idea. Conflagration zone. So you knew that she was in trouble. Fire is very bad for her quirk. She can't stick to the walls because of the scorching flames that have engulfed the nearby buildings. She can already feel her toxic mucus beginning to evaporate and her tongue is drying out. The smoke filling the place is also irritating her eyes. Ajui, is that you? A voice calls. Siu turns around and sees the outline of a boy tail. It actually makes you wonder how he puts on pants when his tail is so wide and long. She also sees a shadowy figure stalking towards him through the smoke. Ojiro, move. Siu shouts before leaping into action. She sticks out her tongue and wraps it around Ojiro's waist and reels him back towards her. Just in time too, because moments later, a blue fireball slams into his previous position. Thanks, Ajui. I was almost cooked, Ojiro says, getting into a fighting stance as he keeps his eyes on the shadowy figure. Those villains are too prepared for this. They sent the two close combat students to a place being invaded by a flame user. And they sent all of us to the fire zone, a place where half my powers are weakened or outright unavailable. Siu comments as the shadowy figure becomes more visible. You can't stick to walls if those walls are ablaze. As it gets closer, the students are able to make out more of their enemy's appearance. He's tall and scrawny, no muscles to speak of. He has a mohawk made of blue and orange flames. His red irises are surrounded by black. Everything below the chin is covered in a black material. Knowing their luck, it's probably fireproof too. There was supposed to be another one of you, a guy with spider powers. But I guess I can kill the two of you instead, he tells them, a manic grin spreading across his lips. His flaming mohawk whips towards Ojiro, but singes his arm and a part of his blonde hair instead of burning his chest due to Tsu's timely intervention. I just got this GI, Ojiro sighs while looking at his burning sleeve. He rips both of them off, fully exposing his muscular arms. Now that the cloth is gone, the black patch of skin is much more visible. This just got slightly more personal. Attacking him is bad, making him rip his clothing off is worse, and burning him is unforgivable. Any idea how to beat this guy? Ojiro asks. He sounds fearful. The odds are stacked against them. Not at all. We're screwed. Kyu's blunt response does nothing to alleviate the ball of fear growing in Ojiro's chest. There's nowhere to hide and catch him off guard since every building is on fire. Quit talking and fight me. The villain screams while rushing towards them. Shoto and Toru. Why are you still on my back? Shoto asks coldly. He guessed that it was Toru due to the fact that he can't see a shadow where it should be. On the outside, he's completely unfazed by the fact that a naked girl is pressed up against him. This is literally the safest place in the USJ. I'm not budging. Toru explains. This confuses Shoto. Why is his back the safest place? Shoto shakes his head before forcing himself onto two legs, forcing Toru to stand as well. 10 people rush out of an overturned building and surrounds them. Toru tightens her grip on Shoto and wraps her legs around his back. Okay, fuck the 10 of you. Your boss just ruined a nice day. I flipped Endeavor off, hugged my sister, and punched my oldest brother for eating my last popsicle. Shoto talks, distracting them from the ice spreading around him. Once the circle is complete, Shoto speeds up the outward spread, capturing all of the enemies. That was easy, Toru says before she feels something disturb the air around them. She barely has time to block the incoming fist. Shoto feels Toru get off of his back, and he asks her what's happening. There's a villain standing right next to you, Toru responds. He should be able to notice him too. Shoto looks around. I don't see anyone there. Only the invisible can immediately notice the invisible. That doesn't make any sense. How can you see a guy who's invisible? Shoto questions. I can't actually see him, but I can feel the air being displaced by his movements. She blocks another punch and slides backwards. I had to learn this in order to find my parents at home. She throws a punch, connecting with his jaw. Shoto rubs his temples and starts sliding away. I can't see what's happening, so I'm just going to start interrogating the other villains. The chance of freezing her on accident is too high. He grabs one of the red-haired villains by the shirt. Tell me about your boss, or else your little friend will be frozen off. He threatens, letting his right hand hover dangerously close to a certain appendage. You don't have the balls, the villain says, spitting a glob of saliva at Shoto's face. The smug look on his face is replaced by one of agony as his buddy is encased in a 12-inch long ice spike. Neither do you, Shoto retorts. All right. I'll tell you everything I know. Just unthaw my best friend. The villain screams. Fine. Shoto replies before putting his left hand on the ice spike. The ice starts melting moments later. Now talk. Our boss is a guy called Tamura Shigaraki. He showed up at our hideout 3 weeks ago. He came with an offer that we couldn't refuse. Help him kill All Might. He threatened to give us a fate worse than death if we declined his offer. The villain explains in a panic. It takes more than a simple threat to gather this many villains to one spot. And All Might is a name that makes most villains shit themselves in terror. What else did Tamura offer? Shoto punches the villain in the nose. 200 million yen, the villain shouts before he falls over, completely unconscious. Okay, that was unexpected. Shoto thinks before bending down to check for a pulse. He holds his finger there for 5 minutes, and the beat never changes. Good. He isn't dead. Shoto stands up and grabs a new villain. If I find out that any one of my classmates got hurt or worse because of this attack, I will spend the rest of my life putting you guys behind bars. Every time you commit a crime, I will be the one to hunt you down with an honest-to-God smile on my face, he growls. Nobody messes with his favorite associates and gets away scot-free. Toru, where you at? Shoto shouts. This next move is going to be big. About 16 feet, Toru replies. Toru sidesteps another punch. Shoto hums to himself. Can I get another 20? Give me 5 minutes. This bad guy doesn't know when to quit. Toru responds. It turns out that this villain knows how to take a punch, even when she hits him in the dick or throat. Okay, Shoto thinks before starting to hum his favorite song. Toru shoves the invisible man towards Shoto before sprinting in the opposite direction. I'm far away, Toru shouts. This causes Shoto to start smiling. He walks away from the group of villains that are struggling to escape the ice around their legs. Sit upon the frozen heavens, Shoto whispers. He slams his hand on the ground, and ice explodes from it. This wave of ice rushes forward with the speed of a raging river rapid and encapsulates the villains in a pillar that stretches to the USJ Dome. And the frostbite is back. Shoto thinks while looking at his numb, shivering hand, this really bites. With Izuku. Izuku had managed to sneak up on the villains that passed him earlier by climbing up the mountainside instead of taking the man-made path. Now, he's trying to figure out if he should attack the vertical beast first or clear out the smaller mooks first. I'm telling you, that big guy needs to be beaten first. He'll do more damage to you than the other guys ever could. Salvation reiterated. We should deal with the smaller guys first. You don't know if they'll get a lucky shot in. I will not be Goku'd or Yamcha'd, Izuku retorts. Salvation isn't sure how to argue against that. Izuku has a very good point. Greater men have fell because of a lucky blow from a henchman who made it to the right place at the right time. Let's just get this over with. I can feel Kyoka's not much further ahead. Salvation gives up the argument. I still don't understand how you can track her too, but okay, Izuku replies. Back when they were wee tykes, Salvation would separate from Izuku, and they'd play hide and seek during the short time frame they were allowed. Each game had a 3-minute limit because Salvation couldn't survive by himself. He'd start getting weaker and losing color. On Izuku's end, he felt much weaker than normal. He had to put more effort into doing things that were simple moments before their split. Salvation never lost a game. Izuku quit trying to beat him when he turned 7. Izuku leaps high into the air before shooting 2 in strings at the ground next to an enemy, pulling himself down towards the enemy, smashing him to the dirt in the process, then jumping off of him and going back into the air. Izuku twists in the air to avoid a hot ball of ash. He spews hot ash, so that must mean he stores it in either his stomach or his lungs. This means I can't afford to hit him in the stomach or chest until I know where the ash is coming from. Avoiding his mouth is also a priority. Izuku thinks to himself. You're a lively bastard, the villain wearing a cowboy hat and smoking a cigarette, states. Didn't anybody tell you that smoking kills? Izuku shouts as he lands. That's what I'm hoping for, he replies. He puts the rest of the cigarette in his mouth before starting to chew it. Izuku leaps over the guy trying to hit him from behind, pushes him to the floor, and webs his arms down. Squish the spider brat, the man in the cowboy hat commands. Izuku's spider sense starts going crazy, forcing him to turn around and jump. The reason? A red-haired, 300-pound giant charging towards him. As this man passes under him, Salvation attaches tendrils to his back and pulls them towards him. You know how to steer this guy? Salvation asks. I have a hypothesis, Izuku replies before shooting a web string at the side of the mountain and pulling on it. Thanks to his adhesive abilities, Deku is able to slightly change their path, and as a result, this happens. My leg. My ribs. My everything. That's right, most of the villains get trampled by their unlikely ally. The villain Izuku is steering slides to a halt. I'm going to stomp a mud hole in your chest. Izuku webs his feet to the floor. I'd like to see you try. Izuku shouts before leaping off of him. It takes more than silly string to stop the juggernaut. The villain yells as the ground starts cracking underneath his feet. Soon, both of his feet are free. Well, not exactly free. His feet are just stuck to slabs of earth. No, Salvation gasps. You've got to be shitting me. That webbing is strong enough to stop a plane full of buses. You should be immobile. Izuku screams. Puny Spider Boy, nothing stops the Juggernaut. Juggernaut declares while rushing towards Izuku. Izuku looks behind him and gets an idea. He decides not to move. Ramming speed, Juggernaut says as the gap between him and his target decreases exponentially. And now, Izuku thinks before sliding through the Juggernaut's legs, pushing those legs with enough strength to cause a 5% increase in speed, and the juggernaut careens off the mountain. That was anticlimactic salvation dead pants. Juggernaut hurled himself off a mountain. What? Did you expect me to get into a fight with the guy that pulled up a large chunk of rock with his feet? Izuku responds while watching the juggernaut fall. Oy vey, if you want a spider squashed right, you have to do it yourself, the villain sighs while silently complaining. They weren't supposed to be fighting Izuku. Can I get a name? I can't just keep calling you cowboy hat guy in my head. Izuku asks as he dodges the burning ash spewing out of the villain's mouth. Call me Ash, he replies. That's not very creative. Izuku shouts as the ash starts to burn salvation. Tell my mother that. She insisted that I be named after the quirk I was guaranteed to inherit. Ash retorted before spitting another ball of hot ashes. Feels bad, man. I can only imagine how angry I'd be if I was named after a spider species, Izuku comments. He shoots a web through the ball of ash and carries some of it away. It attaches to Ash's arm, and he gets to enjoy the feeling of being burned by his own ashes. You're evil. Ash yells in pain. He uses his gray cowboy hat to remove the web and sighs in relief. There's a faint burn mark on his arm. It's shaped like a spider web. That was my favorite hat too, he thinks. Says the guy trying to kill a bunch of teens for no reason. Salvation responds. Hey, I didn't plan on getting my hands bloodied. That's what the mooks were for. Ash explains. Izuku slams his head into the wall. You're just using an indirect method of killing us. Ash shrugs his shoulders. Fair enough. Then he starts spinning while spitting more of that annoying ash into the air. This ash didn't work before. Why would it work now? Izuku is left to watch in horror as the ash starts to form a tornado high above them. Don't you dare. Salvation tells Izuku. A Detroit smash isn't going to help them if it breaks their one good arm. I wasn't thinking about anything, Izuku claims. I know you. Salvation replies before they start running up a wall, hoping to grab Kyoka before the ash starts dispersing through the air. So this is how I die. Falling off a cliff because I didn't look behind me. This can't be how it ends for me, can it? I still have so much left to do. So many people to help. I guess this is goodbye, Mom, Dad, Izuku. I close my eyes as the ground gets closer and closer. Third POV. Kyoka's body hits the ground with a hard thud. Her face slams into the ground first, snapping her jaw shut. Her body bounces and she lands on her back this time. Her screaming quickly turns into the sound of blood being gargled. Kyoka, Momo shrieks as she rushes over to her fallen classmate. But by the time she reaches her, it's clear that Kyoka is losing too much blood for her to help her very much. Her mouth is full of too much blood. Momo turns Kyoka on her side in order to prevent her from drowning in her own blood. Tears begin to leak from Momo's eyes. She's completely useless. Her book doesn't tell her how to make medical supplies. I'm sorry, Kyoka. I wasn't good enough. I don't deserve to be the Deputy Republic, Momo whimpers. Kyoka coughs up blood. It's not your fault, Momo. She soon falls asleep. She's right, you know. Momo jerks her head to the side to see the Izuku's and Salvation's arrival. The concealed fury in his voice goes unnoticed by her. I'm the class rep of Class 1A. I'm the guy that's supposed to lead by example and keep everyone safe. This failure is on me and my poor judgment. Izuku thinks back to all the ways he could have handled the initial assault that separated them. Now Kyoka is bleeding out because of my foolish actions. His shaking fists also go unnoticed. Meanwhile, Salvation is deliberating his next move. I can still heal Izuku, and I'm half foreign DNA now. Going by that logic, I should be able to heal Kyoka without any complications. Alright, I've made up my mind. Salvation pulls out a piece of himself before giving it a very simple order. Heal Mom, then return, ASAP. This chunk of green and purple goo sinks into Kyoka's blood-filled mouth without anyone noticing. Momo, as class rep, I order you and Salvation to escort Denki and Kyoka back to the entrance of the USJ. By now, backup should be on their way here. Izuku looks up to see a girl standing upon the precipice. I have some unfinished business to take care of. Are you sure you can handle this without me? You aren't fully healed yet. Salvation asks. asking for confirmation that this is his desire. Izuku nods his head, a stern look of determination directed at the woman above them. Izuku doubles over as salvation pulls the rest of his brain and body out of him. Once the last piece of salvation is gone, his multiple enzymes start to slowly be burnt out of Izuku's system, allowing Izuku to feel all of the pain inflicted to his body during his fights. This also leaves him naked again. Momo blushes before handing him another gym uniform to put on. "Now get moving," Izuku exclaims before leaping towards the cliff. Salvation climbs onto Kyoka's body before forming a suit around her. This one is much bulkier than before. Salvation isn't willing to put more of himself inside of Kyoka's body. This means he can't make this combat form as slim as the one Izuku uses. Izuku lands in front of the woman he saw before and notices that she isn't alone. "I hope your intel told you about how strong the class rep is. Unfortunately for you, you just pissed him off. We're more than enough to handle a wet behind-the-ears brat," one of the mooks retorts. "Yeah, let us handle this guy. Boss, he isn't worth your time," someone agrees. "I can pound him by myself," another declares. Izuku subconsciously spreads one for all into his legs before stomping the ground. This kicks up dust, and the entire cliff shakes violently, knocking every foe off their feet. One crack forms where his foot struck. That crack spread horizontally through the cliff. "Is that all you go dash?" That mook gets cut off by the sound of more cracking. This continues for several minutes before gravity starts doing its job, snapping the damaged precipice off the mountain. Crash. "Flee," Izuku growls, sending the mooks scampering down the mountain. Some are screaming, some are even pissing themselves as they move. "You can't find good servants these days," the lone woman sighs while shaking her head. She starts walking away. This isn't her problem anymore. She was paid to deal with the sound girl, not that freak of nature. She doesn't see the web bomb stuck to her back, so she's completely helpless when the bomb explodes. This not only knocks her to the ground, but also leaves her in a bad position as sticky fluid splatters all over her back, sticking her to the ground. "Not you. You don't get to run away from this. You don't get a second chance in this life or the next. If you try to run or escape, I'll hunt you down. And when I catch you, I will break your legs as much as legally justifiable. After that, I will make sure you never see the outside of a prison complex for as long as you live." He still hasn't gotten that rage out of his systems yet. Izuku starts limping in the opposite direction before crawling down the mountain. Moments after his departure, the ash starts raining down as huge clumps. "Why are you following me?" Katsuki asks before blasting another worthless mook. "Because this is the manliest brawl I've ever been in," Kirishima exclaims as he uppercuts worthless mook number 2. Katsuki bends over, placing his hands on his knees. He's breathing heavier than he was mere moments ago. "Is it just me, or is it getting hard to breathe around here?" "It's not just you. I'm not getting enough oxygen to balance out the oxygen I'm using up." Kirishima gasps. It feels like he's been inhaling carbon dioxide this entire time. Is this one of their quirks? But who could be doing this? Katsuki thinks as he scans the city ruins. Nothing strikes him as odd. Nothing except that one guy with vines instead of hair that's standing deathly still. "Kirishima, stop breathing until I say so," Katsuki commands, getting a nod in return. He pushes his hands forward, unleashing an explosion that tears apart the land and knocks the plant guy off his feet. The air begins to return to normal. Katsuki takes a breath of air, then he tells Kirishima to breathe into his face. "I knew it. That fucker has an area of effect quirk that allows him to replace the air with carbon dioxide. We've probably been poisoned by now. Mental math isn't my area of expertise." "So what do we do?" Kirishima asks, somewhat surprised at Bakugo's intelligence. "Tactical retreat and seek medical assistance for a potentially lethal amount of CO2 inhalation," Katsuki responds before pulling Kirishima into a fireman carry. Katsuki kicks off his shoes and socks. "What are you doing?" Kirishima asks as Katsuki crouches down. One explosion-powered jump later, and the duo is sailing through the air. Bakugo thinks to himself, "I will save you," because that's what a hero does. He moves his left leg, and launches a small explosion from his foot in order to alter their flight path. A bolt of lightning sails past them. Kirishima is still awed by his current situation. Since when could you use your feet to fly? Not too long ago, I figured out that I can use the sweat produced by my feet to make explosions, and my legs deal with the recoil better than my arms do. I also figured that this would make rescuing injured civilians easier, Katsuki responds. You discovered legs. Kirishima whispers. Don't tell Izuku about this. It's supposed to be a surprise. Katsuki continues. He didn't hear what Kirishima said. Aizawa had been fending off the main assault for quite a while. It's gotten to the point that combat has gotten repetitive. Deactivate a quirk, wrap his scarf around the enemy, and slam him into the ground. Once the enemy is down, crash his leg into their head to knock them out. Once they're down, blink his eyes. Rinse and repeat until only the most resilient mutant quirk users are left standing. No fair. You're supposed to be a level 30 assassin, not a tank. Tomura shouts as another villain crumbles from a stomach jab. Changing your class in the middle of our fight is cheating. You can't cheat in a game that wasn't fair to begin with. Aizawa says as he spin kicks another villain in the chin. Aizawa leaps back as a massive black fist slams into his previous position. Yeah, go get him, Nomo. We're clearing this stage and going after All Might later. Tomura shouts. Their time limit is surely about to expire soon. Level 40 heroes are bound to arrive any minute. Nomu vanishes in a burst of speed, reappearing with his fist buried into Aizawa's gut, forcing Aizawa to throw up blood as he folds over the fist. He definitely broke something. But what's up with that speed? I know I was looking at him before he moved. Aizawa thinks before being suplexed by Nomu. After slamming Aizawa, Nomu picks him up and kicks Aizawa in the face. Aizawa turns into a black missile with one destination, the USJ ceiling. Noma leaps after him and wraps him in a bone-crushing hug. As they near the ceiling, Nomu flips them so that their heads are facing the ground, and he starts to spin. That's right, Nomu. Use your special attack. Primary lot dash Tomura is cut off by a green and purple foot to the stomach. Salvation had arrived. Salvation pushes off of Tomura, rocketing towards Aizawa and Nomu. Not today, bird brain. Salvation begins rapid-firing his webbing at the spinning duo. Once they've been webbed sufficiently, the spinning stops completely. Now Salvation is able to attach a tendril to the web cocoon and the ceiling. Salvation starts to reel the cocoon towards him before he starts to hear a voice whisper in his head. Me? Pleased me. Please kill me. Salvation flinches as the voice starts screaming into his brain. Salvation can't understand why anyone would choose to die. Death is never the answer to the problem. Izuku said so. Salvation continues to reel his teacher to safety, ignoring the fact that it feels like his brain is going to explode. Once the cocoon is in his hands, he tears it apart and starts to reabsorb his webbing. Let go of Aizawa. Salvation yells as he starts prying Noma's arms away from Aizawa. He digs 2 tendrils into Noma's skin and slams them through bone with an audible crack. Nomu doesn't flinch or scream at this unwelcome intrusion, though. His face remains blank as he tries to retighten his grip into a spine-shattering hug. After all, the only thing he's capable of is following orders. You won't succeed, Salvation declares while making sure that he isn't putting any stress on the body sleeping within him. The bleeding has stopped, but her body is still riddled with all types of breaks and fractures. He yanks on the tendrils once more, and then he shoots more tendrils into the gap created by his tug. Thanks to this maneuver, he's able to transfer his brain and face to a spot right next to Nomu and bypass Aizawa. Then he duplicates that face. Now for his next trick, he'll sing like a canary. Salvation unleashes a dual sonic scream at point-blank range. Despite coming from the same source, both sounds are distinctly different. One sounds more masculine, while the other is clearly at a pitch only a female can achieve without tearing their vocal cords or genitals to shreds. This cacophony of mismatched sounds starts to force Noma backwards, the tendrils hooked into his bones refusing to come loose. Both of these factors results in a sickening noise that gets drowned out by Salvation's cry. Skin separates from flesh. Sinew is torn from bone. Ligaments are ripped, and carried away with the detached arms. Without any arms to hold him, Aizawa is free to fall into the spider web of tendrils that Salvation had been creating beneath them. Salvation drops into the web with Aizawa before H slams Nomu to the ground with his tendrils. "You aren't Izuku," Aizawa states. "Izuku doesn't fight like that, and his webs don't behave like that. I'm Salvation, I reside within Izuku. You can call me the ace up his sleeves," Salvation responds. "Where is he?" "Somewhere between the mountains and the plaza. Kyoka got injured, and we had to make an emergency exit," Salvation answers before looking down at Noma's body. "What the hell?" "Noma's arms are back. I thought his quirk was super strength," Aizawa shouts at the cackling Tamura. "That's not his only quirk. Round 2, fleshlights." Tamura is giddy at this point. Nomu is about to make a rampaging Jinchuriki from Naruto look like a toddler throwing a tantrum. Leaping from the crater, Noma tears through Salvation's web with ease. The duo are forced to return to the ground. "Shit," Salvation yells. "I can't afford to get into a fist fight while Kyoka is still in here, but at the same time, I can't fight without a host to act as my skeleton. Then retreat and get my student to safety. I'll stall until support from Yue arrives." Aizawa commands. Time for a game of death tag. Salvation flees to the USJ door. Nomu blitzes Aizawa and picks him up by the head, his fingers shattering Eraserhead's iconic goggles and sending the shards into his eyes. Blood spurts out as the shards dig further and pierce the area behind the eyeball. Aizawa refuses to give them the satisfaction of hearing him scream. Nomu throws Aizawa into the ground, creating a crater 6 feet deep. Picking Aizawa up by the leg, Nomu begins repeatedly slamming him into the dirt. Before anybody can do anything else, the door of the USJ bursts open and a wave of smoke follows after it. "You picked the wrong day to invade this school," a hero growls while walking through the smoke. All of his facial hair is on fire. His shoes are as well. "Why? Because we are here," the other hero says. This one is much more muscular than his counterpart. All Might had arrived with backup in the form of the number 2 hero, Endeavor. Endeavor had been in the principal's office talking with Nizu and All Might when Ito arrived. They were trying to figure out who would host the high school reunion party for their graduating class. Endeavor might not look like it, but he sure knows how to throw a party. What would you expect from a guy that's always lit? All Might charges in with a Detroit smash that pushes Nomu away from Aizawa's fallen form. Grand Fireball, Endeavor whispers with the opposite of tranquil fury. How dare these villains invade his alma mater? He teach them to fear his flames. A ball of red and orange flames slams into Nomu, knocking him further back. The burn on his chest heals slowly. "Shit," Tamura thinks to himself. They hadn't expected Endeavor's presence at UA as well. They could handle All Might by himself. Nomu was designed to complete that task. But the combined might and fury of the top 2 heroes is a combination that every criminal would fear. "Burn to ashes," Endeavor yells as he throws a javelin of flames through Nomu's stomach. "Now it's your turn." Endeavor turns to look at Tamura, leaving him open to an uppercut from Nomu. He notices that the gaping hole is slowly sealing itself shut. "Regeneration, that's not a problem." Endeavor smirks before igniting his hands in fireballs that are a mix of blue and black flames. They will regret angering the master of Hell's fire. "I'm going to make you pay in blood for what you did to him," All Might states calmly. Vanishing in a burst of speed with Aizawa in tow, he lands next to Salvation and the students that avoided being warped. "Watch over him," All Might commands before he rushes on Ajirai. He grabs the Mist Man and chucks him into the central plaza. "How did you know?" Hirojiri grunts as his metal plates hit the ground. "Shut up," All Might roars as he punches the air. The wind turns into a tornado that quickly sucks the Mist Man into it. All Might vanishes again. This time he uppercuts Tamura, knocking every hand off his body with the shockwave. That was for Ida. He leans back and kicks Tamura into the air. This is for 1A. He springs into the air, leaving a crater behind. And this is for Aizawa. He axe kicks Tamura. The recipient of that kick crashes into the ground, creating an even deeper crater and kicking up a column of dust. I'm definitely going to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, Izuku thinks as he continues blindly climbing down the mountain. His right arm is completely free of Salvation's enzymes. Now he is free to feel all of the pain One for All has inflicted to it. All of it. This is how Izuku found himself crawling down a mountain without the use of his dominant hand. There's blood dripping out of his middle finger, and the skin on that hand has completely blackened. The collapsed precipice kicked up tons of eye-irritating dust, so Izuku isn't able to actually see where he's going. He's relying on his spider sense to tell him if he's about to grab something that can't support his weight. That crack in the mountain stretched further than Izuku thought it would. Now the entire mountainside is unstable. Chunks of the mountain are being randomly dislodged from it. Eventually, Izuku finds his way back to the ground and stops defying gravity. He's outside of the smoke cloud now, so his ability to see should be returning to him any minute now. Before this can occur, Izuku is grabbed from behind by two hands. You can't stop the Juggernaut. The villain yells before slamming Izuku's back against his knee. In true Spider-Man fashion, Izuku's spider sense has failed him when he really needed it. With a sickening snap, Izuku folds over the Juggernaut's giant knee. Ahhhhh, Izuku screams as he gets tossed into the ground, forming an Izuku-sized dent. Izuku's scream of pain is music to the Juggernaut's ears. I broke the spider. His laughter is drowned out by Izuku's wailing. I can't feel my legs anymore, Izuku thinks as the Juggernaut walks away whistling a Johnny tune. It won't end like this. I won't let it. Izuku uses his arm strength to force himself out of the dent. Every movement sends a new spike of pain through his body. Somehow he managed to force himself into a sitting position. I will win this fight, Izuku mutters as he grabs a nearby rock with his left hand. Izuku only has one shot at this. He needs to hit a spot on the human body that disables a threat if struck hard enough. The head should be a good target. If I end up missing that giant target, it means I pissed off Hachiman, Artemis, or Apollo. Izuku checks the rock to make sure it is rounded instead of pointy. Izuku isn't worried about killing the villain with a blunt object. He survived falling off a mountain and didn't get scratched. This should be fine. He pulls his arm back, barely holding back another scream, and allows One for All to course through his good arm. He lowers his output to avoid crushing the rock in his grip. Launching the rock like a missile, Izuku's face contorts into an awkward, grimace smile as the projectile hits the target and Izuku is blown onto his back. The unstoppable Juggernaut crumbles to the ground. Then the pain kicks in again and Izuku lets out a heart-wrenching scream as his left arm dislocates from his shoulder. This screaming continues for quite a while, drawing the attention of two students that were heading towards the central plaza. Do you hear that? Shoto asks as he slides on a sheet of ice. The screaming or the collapsing mountain? Toru asks from her position on Shoto's back. That scream sounds like Izuku, doesn't it? Shoto responds. It's starting to give him flashbacks to when Endeavor dislocated his shoulder during one of their training sessions. But Izu is strong. Why would he be screaming? Toru tilts her head to the left. A quizzical head tilt doesn't work if you're invisible, Shoto thinks. He shakes this thought away before replying. He's strong, yes, but strong doesn't mean invincible. We can still be beaten if our opponent knows what they're doing or our guard drops for a single instant. Oh, Toru replied before letting out a scream of her own. The duo had just arrived at Izuku's location. Shoto drops Toru on her feet and rushed over to Izuku. Midoriya, can you stand? Can you fight? Shoto asks. Izuku stifles another scream and starts to respond. I can't feel my legs anymore, and my arms are on their last legs. Toru applies pressure to Izuku's legs just to see if she can make Izuku feel something. He doesn't. Shoto grabs Izuku's arm, eliciting a brief cry of pain, and puts it over his shoulder. If your legs don't work, I'll just carry you to Recovery Girl. Find Salvation, that's the quicker option. He'll be able to minimize the damage. Maybe he'll be able to fix my spine. He's good with shattered bones. Izuku whispers as Shoto gets him in a vertical position. Where is he? I thought the two of you were inseparable, Toru asks. He's at the gate healing Kyoka. She was losing a lot of blood last time I saw her. Izuku answers as Shoto drags him towards the plaza. You could use a little less blood loss too, Shoto thinks as another drop of Izuku's blood lands on him. The trio of students is mostly silent as they search for salvation. The only sounds being created are the sounds of feet hitting dirt, feet hitting concrete, and feet being dragged across both. Let's not forget the occasional whimper whenever Shoto does something that makes Izuku's shoulder move. They arrived at the central plaza and Shoto stops dead in his tracks, a glare fixed at the black and blue flames being tossed into the air. Shoto knows that fire. Endeavor, Shoto snarls, gaining Toru's attention in the process. She doesn't say anything. Now isn't the time. I'll ask him about this later, Toru thinks as Shoto's murderous expression shifts back into an aloof expression. Toru spots a green creature standing at the top of the stairs. I found salvation, Toru exclaims while pointing at him. Is she trying to point without her gloves on? Shoto thinks as he drags his passenger to the stairs. Grab his legs. I'm not dragging him up 30 steps. They manage to get him up the steps relatively quickly, but Toru is out of breath by the time they finish. I should really help her with her cardio. Shoto thinks before Izuku is lifted off his shoulder by salvation. I leave you alone for 6 minutes, and you get your ass kicked by a mook. You didn't even make it to the boss battle. It was the guy I told you to take out first, wasn't it? Salvation sighs before laying Izuku down, then laying down next to him. Salvation leaps off of Kyoka's unconscious body and returns to the body he has inhabited for 11 years. He broke your spine. Salvation yells. He'll have to deal with that first before it accidentally stabs something vital for Izuku's continued existence. Recovery Girl can heal the arms if he isn't done by the time she arrives. Deka, what happened to you? Achiko rushes over towards her downed friend. Tears are beginning to leak from her eyes. I fell down some stairs, Izuku replies, trying to distract her with a joke. Must have been a really long staircase, Rikido Sato responds, playing along. Yeah, it was a juggernaut, Izuku retorts while trying to copy the juggernaut's voice. Achiko starts laughing uncontrollably and crying at the same time. I don't get it, Shoto thinks. Meanwhile, Endeavor is in the middle of burning every last Nomu cell to the point of carbonation. Go to hell, he shouts from the sky before thrusting his fists towards the ground, unleashing 2 beach ball-sized orbs of black and blue flames. These flames hit the ground and erupt into a pillar of flame that engulfs the Nomu and everything within 25 feet of it. The only thing that remains is a field of scorched earth, the flame's heat having evaporated away all the water in the fountain and leaving nothing but charred black soil behind. We're losing, Tamura thinks as he pulls himself out of the crater All Might kicked him into. All Might punches Tamura in the face, knocking out a couple teeth and knocking Tamura out. By now, Kurogiri's tornado has stopped, giving him the ability to see what happened during his absence. I believe it's time I make my hasty retreat. Kurogiri vanishes into his warp gate. He reappears in the crater and wraps himself around Tamura, vanishing just in time to avoid another tornado-creating smash attack. By the time the other pro heroes had arrived, almost everything was already dealt with. The only task left was collecting the invaders and for Recovery Girl to treat the wounded. All Might had left to retrieve all of the missing students. He found them all except for 2. Bakugo's and Kirishima's unconscious bodies fell out of the sky while All Might was away. Endeavor had stomped up the steps, grabbed Shoto by the collar, and dragged him off somewhere to have a private conversation. While all of this was happening, Salvation and Recovery Girl were busy doing damage control, slowly trying to reattach the 2 pieces of Izuku's spine and fix his arms. Recovery Girl's office. Izuku wakes up next to an occupied hospital bed. I'm in a wheelchair. My legs are completely numb. I can't feel them anymore. He tries to move them, but his body won't respond. Izuku starts to panic. He can't be a hero without legs. Before you start freaking out about your legs, let me explain. It's not as bad as you think, Salvation interrupts. You really owe her a thank you. If it was up to me alone, you'd never be able to walk by yourself. But thanks to me, Recovery Girl, and her quirk, you'll regain the full use of your legs eventually. You'll need a lot more healing sessions, more than you could ever afford. But fortunately, she's feeling generous enough to work for free. Oh, where's Kyoka? I'm right here. She groans as she pushes the cover off of her face. Are you okay? Izuku asks as he looks at the bandages around her forehead. Kyoka is taken aback by this. He's the one in a wheelchair, yet he's asking if she's okay. Yeah, I'm fine. That's good. I'm glad, Izuku smiles. Since neither one of us are going anywhere for a minute, I might as well tell you a story about how I learned to web swing. Izuku is attempting to distract her from the fact that he's bound to a chair for the foreseeable future. Sounds interesting, let's hear it. She sighs, it's better than silence. It happened when I was 8 years old. Flashback. I had just finished climbing to the top of a tree to grab an apple for my mother. Unfortunately, I didn't understand that the tree branches at the top weren't meant to support more weight than a bird, so I was completely unprepared for what happened next. The branch snapped, leaving me to plummet to my inevitable demise. At least that's how this story would end if I didn't have badass spider powers. I shot my web at a nearby tree branch, hoping to slow my descent. It did, and at the same time, it didn't. As soon as my web string touched the branch, I was forced to move in an arc of backwards and forwards movement. This gave me an idea. I pushed off of the tree and shot more webbing at a different tree. My expectation was that I'd catch a branch and swing again. But what actually happened is that I grabbed a bird and pulled both of us to the ground. Flashback end. Kyoka starts laughing. You and birds just don't get along at all, do you? I'm friends with Fumikage, I think. Izuku and Kyoka had been alone in Recovery Girl's office for an hour now. Izuku has started to get fidgety. He can't roll to the bathroom or scratch the itch under his bandages. His stamina too low and his body too damaged for Recovery Girl to heal him in one attempt. So for the next day and a half, his arms are stuck in the itchy bandages and a quirk-proof sling thanks to the one-for-all backlash. His fidgeting is put to an end by Kyoka's pillow smacking his face. Stop that. You're making me nervous. Unlike you, I can't get up to go to the restroom. He retorts, I need somebody to roll me down to a bathroom, and neither I nor Salvation know the way to a restroom. This school is a giant maze. Just use the maps on the walls. Kyoka sighs. We're afflicted with ingraphicacy. Izuku replies, we couldn't read a map to save our lives. I can do science, English, math, and quirks, but maps are outside of my skill set. Luckily, GPS makes map reading unnecessary. Fine, I'll take you to the bathroom. Kyoka moves her legs to the side of the bed, preparing to stand up. You can't. I need someone to help me get on and off the toilet. Wiping isn't possible either. Salvation refuses to come into bathrooms with me. Pee and poop scares him. Poop looks and smells terrible. Plus, it gets stuck to my body. Pee smells terrible, and its smell takes forever to wash away. Salvation chimes in. Kyoka starts to blush. It doesn't matter. You and Salvation saved my life today. Helping you use the toilet is the least I can do. Izuku is reluctant to agree. It's not shyness about her seeing his package that has him hesitating. He doesn't care that she'll see more of him than usual. It's pride. Letting his friends see his genitals is one thing. Letting them help him wipe his ass is another thing entirely. Izuku is about to decline, but gets interrupted by Salvation. Quit being stubborn. You need to use the bathroom, and she's willing to help you. Put aside your pride, and let her carry your reckless but to the toilet. Izuku tries to force his arms out of their slings. You can't expect me to toss away the only thing I have right now. My ability to defend myself has been taken for who knows how long. My ability to walk on my own has been taken until further notice. My ability to swing through the sky is gone until my arms heal. Now, you're telling me to let my pride be stripped away too. Once that goes away, what else will I have? Nothing. I'll stop being Izuku Midoriya, and I'll go back to being Deku, the kid who couldn't do anything and nobody but his mom cared about. No, I'll be less than a Deku. I'll be a teen that can't do anything, not even help himself. Kyoka is stunned. She had no idea that Izuku felt that way. He's been cracking jokes for the past hour, but on the inside he's been completely different. He has been trying to lift her spirits, but at the same time his spirit has been breaking apart at the seams. The thought that having his body broken would create mental scars that run just as deep as the physical scars had never crossed her mind. She stands up and pulls Izuku into a hug. You'll have me. I won't leave, no matter what. Thank you, Izuku replies. It looks like he's about to cry. Let's find that restroom. Tables were flipped over, glass littered the floor, and papers were flying through the air in a circle, trapping them in a paper storm. It was hell on earth. No peace or quiet. The room is full of bloodlust and screaming. No hope of salvation. It fled as soon as this monster entered the room. The only thing that remains is pure unadulterated calamity. It was as if the horsemen of the apocalypse descended upon the earth and inflicted their wrath as conquest, and war devastated everything in sight. While at the same time Pandora's box was opened, and Lucifer himself has decided to break out of hell's dark cold depths. This was it, the end of UA. But let's see how it started. While his successor is being wheeled to a bathroom by his friend, All Might is in Principal Nizu's office waiting for Inko Midoriya to arrive. He had no idea what was in store as soon as the door burst open and a furious Inko stomped in moments later. Her hair is wiping around wildly, as if being tossed around by a wind only she could feel. Facing the fury of a pissed-off Midoriya, Nizu decides to choose life. He starts cowering under a coffee mug. "You promised me." Inko screams before Nizu's favorite teacup is sent flying into a wall, shards of ceramic peppering the floor due to maternal fury. "You said this was a safe place for Izuku," she shouts as All Might gets shoved into the principal's desk by psychic energy. The papers on that desk are shredded and turned into confetti. That confetti quickly begins to circle through the air and create mini tornadoes. "Inko, it wasn't our fault." All Might gasps while clutching his back. Like hell it isn't. This is the school that trains future heroes, the next generation of society. Yet you guys never thought to make it teleportation-proof. What happens if a villain gets the bright idea to warp in, grab 2 students, then warp out? You have Enji's son here too for Buddha's sake. There's bound to be people that want him dead or worse. Inko yells before Nizu's hiding place gets shattered. The glass windows also explode inwards, littering the floor with glass. Eep! Nizu whimpers as his table flips onto its side, knocking him onto the floor. Izuku starts shivering in his wheelchair while being rolled to the bathroom by a speed-walking Kyoka. "What's wrong?" she asks as she slides them to a stop. "Mom is super nettled," Izuku responded with a vacant look in his eyes. His spider sense always warns him whenever his mom starts throwing around psychic attacks. Inko isn't easy to anger, but when she does get angry, oh man, you better pray that she calms down before lethal objects start flying. One day, Izuku was unwillingly getting tossed into the air repeatedly in the park by the tongue of a 3rd grader with a toad quirk, and Inko pulled up in her red van. She was furious at the kid and her parents. They just sat and watched it happen. The kid found herself buried under all the sand from the sandbox. Her parents. Well, let's just say that Izuku will never look at the metal bars on a swing set the same way ever again. Katsuki was in a much better condition than most of his classmates that were teleported, and that's saying a lot. The bottoms of his feet had been burned by his explosions, and his toe bones had fractures due to explosion recoil. Easy work for Recovery Girl to heal. Suyu's tongue had been scorched. That would take a while to heal. And even then, tasting food might be a little difficult. Ojiro's tail had most of its hair burned off, in addition to being burned. Yuga's stomach had collapsed, and he was sent to a real hospital for help. Mineta was fine. He hid like a coward until All Might found him. Koji Koda is also fine thanks to Fumikage and Dark Shadow being strong as fuck in the darkness. Ito will live, but they weren't able to find his missing hand to reattach it. His hand is under the collapsed mountain. Toru is also fine. She just has a couple invisible bruises. Kirishima just had his poison status cured. Thankfully, he was unconscious, so the whole oxygen pumping process was easy. Shoto hasn't been seen ever since Endeavor pulled him away at the USJ. Speaking of them, "You're a fool," Endeavor snarls as soon as they get home. "You refuse to accept your destiny. You will use your flames and surpass All Might." "I don't believe in destiny, and I don't need the curse you gave me," Shoto shouts as he starts marching towards his room. "Mom's ice is all I'll ever need." What will you do when you find someone who regenerates faster than your ice can batter and slice them? Endeavor asks. Not even All Might can stop a regeneration quirk with brute force. I'll just find a way to freeze them at a level that prevents the cells from replicating. Shoto answers before slamming the door. Just in time, too, as the door is impacted by a small ball of flame moments later. Shoto looks down at his shaking right hand. It still stings from the coldness of his ice. This is the backlash of his mom's blessing. Overuse puts the right side of his body at risk of frostbite and hypothermia. He almost doesn't hear the sound of his door opening. He tenses up, preparing to unleash his ice if his father walks through that door right now. Shoto, are you okay? He deactivates his quirk as soon as he hears the soft voice of his sister. I'm fine, Fuyumi, just a little angry and cold. Shoto sighs. He can't stay mad around her. She's too kind for him to direct his fury at. He tries to hide the palm of his hand, but it's too late. Your hand, she gasps before yanking his hand out of his pocket. She interlocks their fingers before placing her left hand on the back of his right hand. Her right hand ignites with pink flames, and her left hand emits frost. This is Fuyumi's greatest secret. She inherited ice and flames. Endeavor wasn't home to see her quirk's first activation, so her mother told her to hide her rose flames from her dad as soon as her quirk activated. Their mom knew that Fuyumi wouldn't be allowed to pursue her teaching dream if Endeavor knew she had inherited both of their quirks like he wanted. The natural crimson streaks in her white hair were just written off as a weird mutation. The combination of hot and cold safely raises the temperature of Shoto's hand and gets rid of the stinging sensation on his palm. Thanks, Shoto said before Fuyumi let go of his hand and cut off her flame. Anytime, baby bro. So how was your day, minus Endeavor being an ass? Fuyumi pulls Shoto into a hug. Not good, but far from the worst day of my life. That award goes to the day I found out Mom hates me. Shoto replies. Fuyumi hugs him tighter. Mom doesn't hate you. She never could. Shoto snorts. Explain that to the burn on my face. Omake, Rejected Quirks Part 3. Izuku had been cursed and blessed at birth. He was cursed with the worst luck in the world, but blessed with the most powerful quirk in return. Now you're probably wondering, what quirk could possibly be considered the most powerful? Well, that's an easy one, negation. He can negate any power with his right hand. It doesn't matter what it is. If it is the result of a quirk, he can negate it with a simple touch. It also grants him immunity to any quirk that would affect his entire body. This means that teleportation, time, and gravity quirks are completely ineffective. Whenever he negates the quirk, a strange sound is made. It sounds like shattering glass. What's the name of his quirk? The quirk that everything fears. Imagine Breaker. That's why Izuku is fairly confident that he can win this match against Shoto in the sports festival. I have to finish this in one move, Shoto thinks as he prepares to unleash another giant wave of ice as soon as the match starts. Fight, Present Mike shouts. The arena is quickly flooded by ice, but Izuku isn't afraid. He pulls his fist back and prepares to punch the avalanche of ice heading his way. You have to try harder than that, Shoto. Izuku yells as his fist meets ice, stopping the ice in his path from advancing. Nanny, Shoto gasps. He didn't think Izuku's quirk had the power to affect an area this large. The ice shatters, allowing Shoto to see that Izuku wasn't even hurt by the ice he punched. Izuku starts to chuckle, which quickly turns into a maniacal laugh. You fool. Did you really think you could defeat Imagine Breaker with a simple ice attack? You don't understand how my power works, but I understand yours. I understand that without your flames regulating your temperature, you'll have to stop fighting or freeze to death. And now that I know that, I will crush you. Izuku screams as he charges towards Shoto. He tries to make an ice shield to defend himself, but the Imagine Breaker just punches through it, and Izuku scores a direct hit on Shoto's nose, breaking it with an audible crunch. This is followed by a knee strike to the stomach, doubling Shoto over and making him spit up blood. Izuku grabs Shoto by the right hand, and Judo throws him off the arena. Winner, Izuku Midoriya. Kyoka is rolling Izuku back to Recovery Girl's office when they start to smell something foul. Izuku immediately recognizes it as the putrid odor of hospital disinfectant. Let's go visit our classmates, Kyoka suggests as she stops next to the main infirmary's entrance. Izuku slowly and silently nods in agreement with Kyoka. He has something to tell them. Easier to say it now instead of tracking everyone down individually. Eat your fucking soup is the first thing Kyoka and Izuku hear as they open the door to the main infirmary. Izuku looks slightly to the left and sees Katsuki trying to shove a spoonful of a strange white slop down Kirishima's throat. I'll just leave the obvious joke alone. I'm better than that, Izuku thinks before clearing his throat. He wants to get the attention of all his classmates. Izuku's awake, Ochiko announces while dashing away from Ida's bedside. Ida quickly hobbles after her. Look at that, Izuku's here, Kirishima says to Katsuki. This immediately halts Katsuki's spoon. Kirishima pulls himself out of bed and the two of them start walking towards Izuku. This process continues until all of Class 1A, minus Shoto, Yuga, and Mineta. What happened to you? Fumikage asks with barely hidden sadness. Who did this to you? Katsuki growls, seconds away from blasting something. Izuku sighs before telling the class about his encounter with the Juggernaut. As he tells his tale, an aura of sadness spreads throughout the room, giving it a dark and gloomy atmosphere. This guy sounds like serious trouble. I hope I never have to fight that beast, Kaminari thinks as a shiver creeps up his spine. He knows that he would end up in worse position than Izuku is in. Izuku has a stronger spirit than I initially suspected. He experienced this conflict, yet his spirit is burning brighter than ever before. Would the same be true for me? Fumikage ponders as Izuku finishes the recap. Shoji speaks up, so what happens now? The answer to that is obvious, isn't it? We just get stronger and kick their asses, Kirishima responds while hardening his arms. Izuku shakes his head and lets out a sigh. You're correct, but I have something to tell all of you first. I need to apologize for my failures. I wasn't good enough to stop them from separating us. Tears start streaming down his face. Kyoka wraps her arms around Izuku and pulls him into a hug. This isn't your fault. The villains were prepared for all of our quirks. Yeah, how were you supposed to stop us from being separated? Toru asks while tilting her head. I could have blown the first wave of mist away. It would have given us time to mount a defense. I could have tied all of us together with webbing. I could have broke down the door with my strength and held him off while you guys escaped. Izuku rambles while looking down at his legs. He's surprised when he feels another person hug him. And another. And another. And another. And another. Soon enough it becomes a giant dog pile in the middle of the infirmary. Even Katsuki reluctantly joined the dog pile after the 13th hug happened. Fumikage was the 12th hug. You guys are the best, Izuku thinks as the tears stop falling. Under the dog pile of his peers, Izuku silently swears to get stronger for them, and the first step towards this goal is doing something about One for All and getting answers about a question that's been gnawing at the back of his head for a couple weeks. After the dog pile ended, Izuku and Kyoka head back to Recovery Girl's office. They arrive just in time for All Might to crash through her door. Where's my baby boy? A familiar voice shouts, causing Izuku to blush, and Kyoka tries to stifle a giggle. Izuku knows that this will be used against him eventually, and Kyoka knows that she'll use it against Izuku soon. I think she's looking for you, Kyoka whispers into Izuku's ear. Ugh, I hate when she gets like this. I can't even get a bruise without her going berserk. Izuku groans. He appreciates the support, but throwing teachers through walls is where a line needs to be drawn. Any clever response that Kyoka was going to make is cut out by a dark, malevolent aura exploding out of the room. Inko Midoriya stalks through the broken doorway with her hair whipping wildly through the air like she's standing in the middle of a tornado. Floating behind her are the following items: a coffee mug, a foldable metal chair, and a wooden table leg. Mom, put the phoenix back in the cage. Izuku shouts. His words smother the malevolent aura, and all of Inko's ammo drops to the floor. My little tarantula, she exclaims while weeping. Izuku is pulled out of his chair and dragged towards Inko by psychic power. Once he's in her grasp, Izuku gets soaked by the river of tears and gets shaken and spun around by his distraught mother. From the corner of his eye, Izuku can see Kyoka trying to fight off the grin tugging at her lips. I love you too, Mom, but I really need to talk to All Might right now. Izuku struggles to say while being suffocated with his mother's love. It took 15 minutes for Inko to let go of her son, and when he tried to leave her side and enter Recovery Girl's office with All Might in tow, she tried to follow. It took 10 minutes for Izuku to convince her to let him do this alone. She should be tormenting Kyoka until he leaves the room again. Finally, Izuku whispers after hearing the soft click of the door. Now it's just him, All Might, Recovery Girl, and the principal. Your mother is as vicious as ever, Recovery Girl chuckles. This statement gives Izuku pause. It sounds like they knew each other already. Questions for another day. Time to get straight down to the heart of the issue. He twists his neck towards All Might. How does One for All actually work? You mentioned that it stockpiles power from one user and passes it down to the next. But what does that entail? Power is a broad term. Will it pass along my quirk or just the physical strength I have when I pass it down? This is important because my physical strength will constantly fluctuate based on my body. And depending on what One for All passes on, my successor and everyone after them could have an impossible task. They won't ever be able to master One for All unless they have an invincible body to deal with the recoil. Izuku states, causing Mizu's eyes to widen in realization. What do you mean? All Might asks. My quirk is a mutant quirk, gives the user the proportional strength of a spider and enhanced durability to make sure that the super strength doesn't break their body. These are just theories, but if One for All doesn't integrate enhanced durability but stores Izuku's proportional strength, it could mutate into A. If both are integrated into One for All, it can turn into B. It puts a cap on the amount of One for All's power the user will be able to draw out at a time based on their body's physical limits. This means that you can give it to anyone without blowing off their limbs. A. It gives the One for All strength a boost in strength proportional to the people that acquire it in the future. If theory A or C is true, the opposite of B is true and you can't give it to anybody without it being almost definitely lethal. Theory C is that it keeps absorbing my rapidly increasing power and adding it to One for All's reservoir of power until I find a hero who won't be a nuclear bomb waiting to explode. I'm not completely sure myself. The previous carrier died before she could finish telling me everything about One for All. All Might replies, eliciting a sigh and frown from Recovery Girl. Well, I have no answers, just more questions. Izuku thinks to himself before asking All Might if he can train him after his arms heal. He'll have to depend on Salvation's help in order to stand up until his healing sessions are finished. No, I'm not the best teacher for you right now. I realize that now. You've had this power for months, but have made almost no progress under my tutelage. One for All is still a hazard to your health. I'll have to call the man who trained me and ask for help. All Might shudders at the memory of his training. You don't mean him, do you? Recovery Girl shudders. She has her own bad memories about this guy. Yes, I have to call Gran Torino. 2 days off. UA has shut down due to dangerous gas leaks. The truth is that they're busy installing those anti-teleportation devices. They told the press that the injuries were due to an odorless, combustible gas igniting in the conflagration zone during the rescue training. This explosion has left several students temporarily incapacitated. The League of Villains weren't mentioned. The entire attack has been swept under the rug. Some people believe the story. Why would a hero school lie to us? Others are still skeptical about it, despite having no good answer to the opposing side's question. Leaving a handicapped Izuku with nothing to do but lay in his room, practicing his camouflage powers and talking to Salvation. He can't even use his phone because his fingers are covered by the cast. You could play with your spiders, Salvation suggests while pointing tendrils at the numerous see-through containers that line 2 bedroom walls. There's tarantulas, golden silk orb weavers, and a lot of venomous spiders that a teen shouldn't have access to. Black widows shouldn't be owned by anyone. They're there for observation purposes, not playing with. Izuku replies. Those are the exact same thing, and you know it. You observe them by putting a mini fan in and watching them float away on webs. Salvation counters. That's research. I'm trying to figure out how they do it and what affects it. Izuku retorts. You have a phone and 3 laptops. You could figure all this out on the internet. Salvation said before the door is gently slammed open. You have guests. Inko announces with barely hidden glee. This is the first time Izuku has had female visitors inside the house. After Izuku agrees to meet them, Salvation bonds to Izuku's spine. He won't use that blasted wheelchair unless he absolutely has to. It's insulting and demeaning. This method is hardly any better. Now Izuku feels like a puppet, but it's better than a device that's easily thwarted by any and every staircase. Salvation can't do this forever though. It takes a lot of energy, and he still has to save enough energy for him to heal Izuku's spine. One leg at a time, Salvation slowly steers Izuku to the living room couch where his friends await. Well, most of his friends. Katsuki Bakugo, Hyoka Jiro, Denki Kaminari, Achiko Uraraka, and Ida Tenya. He can't help but wonder why Tenya is here. He never told anyone except Kyoka, Achiko, and Katsuki where he lives. It's only fair that Kyoka and Achiko knows where he lives. He saw both of their living quarters. Achiko probably brought him along. And he can't help but notice how close together Denki and Kyoka are sitting. How's it hanging? Denki asks, breaking the silence in the process. Izuku thinks about making a blatantly dirty joke, but decided against it when he remembers that Kyoka is here too. I'm fine. I've been bored without my hands. But I'm fine, Izuku answers. This answer makes Denki laugh and Katsuki snorts. Tenya takes a minute to catch on, and he tries to bury the laughter that is trying to escape. This ultimately fails once Achiko starts laughing hysterically. Childish teens, Inko thinks from the kitchen, but if you look closely enough you could see the beginnings of a smile on her face. This is how Izuku spent the rest of his day, joking with friends and Tenya. Finally, Izuku thought as he flexed his arms. His arms have been healed back to 100% by the combined efforts of Recovery Girl and Salvation. And since his arms are healed, he can finally start training again. He flexed his hand, making sure there isn't any lingering pain. There are a couple scars on his fingers and hands, but none of them are too grotesque. If you keep healing like this, your body should be back to 100% before the sports festival, Recovery Girl informs Izuku. This makes Izuku happy. For a minute he thought that he'd have to win the festival with webs and wheelchair combos. You fucking better be healed by then, Katsuki thinks. Winning the sports festival will be bittersweet if he beats a cripple that can't use his full power. Izuku yawns into his right hand. Alright, sleep first, training later. But once Izuku wakes up, he's putting his nose to the grindstone and achieving the next level of power. Class resumed the next day, leaving the students of Class 1A confused about who would teach today. There is no way that Aizawa is going to be out of the hospital and able to teach them. Not in 2 days. Which is why the entire class lets out a gasp when that door swung open and Aizawa entered the class with his head and arms wrapped tightly in bandages. Are you supposed to be out of the hospital? Toru asks because he looks like a walking mummy. An injury such as this won't stop me from teaching. Aizawa responds through the bandages. Teaching isn't the most physically demanding job in the world. As long as he can still talk, Aizawa can teach. Damaged eyes and broken arms won't stop him. Listen up. The fight is far from over. 2 weeks from now, U.A's sports festival will begin, and all of you will participate in it. Aizawa's monotone voice does nothing to dampen the students' excitement, but some of them are still skeptical. Kyoka is their voice. Is it really alright to have the festival after the villain attack? They might attack here too. Principal Nizu wants to show that UA is strong despite the training accident that injured a freshman hero class. Even if that wasn't the case, the public and the rest of the student body don't know about the villains, so we have no real way to justify canceling one of our most important events. We'd just give the skeptical reporters more ammo. Aizawa retorts. When no more objections are raised, Aizawa starts talking again. Due to the festival being your one chance per year to show off your combat skills, our schedule will be changed for the next 2 weeks. All of your core classes will be moved to the beginning of the day, allowing you to spend the afternoon training at our facilities and getting training advice from your teachers. I expect that all of you will use this time to get stronger. Then again, you're teenagers, you'll probably spend this time goofing off and socializing. Izuku looks at Aizawa, an idea forming in his mind. His webs serve the same purpose as Aizawa's capture scarf. Maybe he can give him ideas about how to better utilize them in a variety of combat situations. He's been depending on brute force ever since he got the strength from One for All. Now that he has camouflage abilities, he has to learn stealth too. It's time to become a real spider. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. You have to create your hero names today. This festival isn't just how your usefulness becomes known. It's also a chance for your names to become known. If people like it, it sticks. But if they don't, the mass media will give you a new one. Trust me when I say that you don't want that. Midnight should be here any second dash. The door bursts open before Izawa can finish speaking. The only hero to be given an 18+ rating saunters into the room with a grin on her face. This is going to be a long hour. Izuku groans while resting his head on the back of his wheelchair. A very noticeable blush is on his cheeks. Before long, it's Izuku's turn to present his name. He rolls up to the front of the class. He still isn't completely sure about the rest of his name. He wants it to represent who he wants to be as a hero. Izuku starts talking. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I've narrowed it down to 2 options. He turns the whiteboard, revealing his name to the class. The friendly neighborhood hero, Spider-Man. That's a spectacular name, Midnight chimes in. Funny you should mention that word. I was torn between this and calling myself the spectacular hero, Izuku responds. He eventually settled on the first choice because he wants to be that type of hero. He can't help but admire the idea of protecting the neighborhoods. He'll never be able to forget about this dream now. No matter how popular he becomes, he'll never forget about the little guy. Spider-Man returns to his desk and spends the rest of the class period talking to Earphone Jack and Tsukuyami. Katsuki opens the door to exit the classroom and finds a tall, scrawny boy with indigo hair standing in front of the door. The dark bags under his purple eyes makes him look like he hasn't slept in years. Insomniacs Anonymous is down the hall, Katsuki comments. I'm not here for that. I'm here to declare war against the hero course students. I'm a general education student who dreams of being a hero. That dream was stolen from me by people with flashy, heroic quirks. People like you. I detest each and every one of you because of that. Now's my chance to reclaim my spot. If I do well enough during the sports festival, one of you will be replaced by me. He replies. This catches the attention of Class 1A. Salvation's mask forms over Izuku's face. He starts to chuckle. Don't blame us because you're weak. He stands up and strides over to the door. After a few tense seconds, Izuku/Salvation is staring down at the new guy. The exam may be skewed towards combat quirks, but that doesn't matter. Every Gen Ed student had the potential to be in the hero course right now. If you don't believe me, a guy with a flashy quirk, allow me to point you towards 2 people in 1A with quirks that weren't suited for the exam at all. Toru is an invisible girl with a normal human's durability. Unless she secretly has the arms of a bodybuilder, she can't break steel robots and earn points. To make matters worse, her robots could be stolen because another participant didn't see her fighting it. Yet somehow, she managed to disable enough to enroll. There's no chance that she got rescue points, since nobody would notice her in all the chaos. Her chances were slim due to her quirk, but she found a way. So obviously having a flashy quirk isn't the be-all and end-all. But wait, there's more. See that big guy hiding behind the guy with a bird head? His name is Anima. His quirk doesn't affect robots at all. It only controls animals, and we know he either can't or won't control humans. So, this quiet guy definitely got in due to quirkless brute force, meaning that a quirk isn't even necessary to pass the exam and enter our course. So what's your excuse? TCH, go to hell, the boy mutters before storming off. I didn't even have to point out the copycat guy in 1B. He had to learn how to use other people's quirks on the fly. Salvation states with a bored tone. Don't you think you were a little harsh? Koji Koda says with sign language. We don't, Izuku responds as he sits down in his wheelchair. This surprises Koda. He didn't know that Izuku understood sign language. Omax, rejected quirks 4. Adapt to survive, Izuku thinks as he sticks his head in the class's fish tank. His neck grows gills and his skin becomes scaly like a fish. This is the power of evolution, but the funny thing is, it's defective. That's right, it's an unstable quirk that Izuku can't control. One time, Izuku stabbed his hand with a knife, expecting to become harder than the knife. What happened instead is that his hand turned intangible, making Izuku stab through the table. Izuku had to study for a test one day, and his quirk reacted by giving him perfect photographic memory. When Bakugo tried to hit him with an explosion, his body released a wave of cold air that instantly froze the nitroglycerin on his palms. When he fell out of a tree, he teleported onto the dirt, completely unharmed, just slightly confused about what happened. This is the power of evolution.